Everybody and welcome to the NLC. Today we're going to be going into our semifinals where the team that barely got into playoffs in NORD are going to be taking on the preseason favorites in Verdant in securing the final spot in the grand finals on Saturday. And with me today I have Veteran, I have Middlecott, and I have Verdant. Welcome fellas, and I'm going to start with you, Veteran. Who's winning today?
Okay, what I love about today, right, is that it's last season NORD basically against last season Verdant, but the roles are switched, right? The roles are switched. Verdant was the guys who barely made it in, pretty much by stealing Baron non-stop, managed to upset on the first round, and looked to upset on the second round, right? But I still believe Verdant are going to win. But last year, I also thought NORD were going to win, when NORD were the super team favourites who didn't do the complete stomp of the first round, but we all knew it was kind of going to be close, right? And I still believe it's going to be the Verdant win angle, but I was wrong last time, and it wouldn't surprise me if I was wrong this time, but I do have to bet against Witter, so, you know, we just have to go that way. My hands are tied in that regard, right? I think NORD's improvement's been brilliant. They should be absolutely proud of it, the same reason Verdant should have been proud last time. And I really love to see, right, the team that bet on rookies doing well and possibly being able to go up against another one of these big super teams.
Verdant, do you concur to the statement coming through from the man in the kitchen, or what's the... Or do you have a different cuisine that you would like to introduce to the people at home today?
Well, everybody knows if they're a big long-term NLC stan along Verdant stan, there's a cake mixer right here. So I can start whipping up some other good stuff as well. But I think Veteran's spitting facts, honestly. The parallels between these two teams, or I suppose the comparisons we can draw between these two teams and sort of the role reversal that we've seen is actually very very palpable in this series. I do, however, have NORD taking this one. I'm gonna assume history repeats itself in the thematic sense that the underdog will prevail. I do also have it as a 3-0. So, you know, I kind of sent it with today. I'm all in on NORD. I'm on board the hype train. Don't really care about this star-studded Verdant roster. Let's just show them. Yeah, I think that's appropriate. Me and Twitter are
Do you know what I think
beefing.
It is? Do you know what I think it is, Rudu? I think you're there, 4th place, 38 out of 61. I don't think you feel like you've got anything to lose at this point.
Brother man, I am tied with Twitter. This could never be higher for me. The stakes have never been higher. I don't care if I'm lower than Witter, you, and Duckling.
Yeah.
It does not matter. Twitter are my enemies.
But I think what the great thing actually is, just looking through these votes, I don't believe we've kind of got a very big spread of how we think this matchup is going to go, which is kind of unusual for us on the NLC. I think we generally tend to be in agreement about a lot of matchups, but obviously we've got myself and Veteran going 3-2 for Verdant, and we've got a bunch of 3-0s, 3-1s favouring NORD as well. I think this is a matchup which is very, very difficult to predict because of how form-based both of these teams are.
I agree.
Go ahead, Veteran.
Sorry. I agree. It's a difficult matchup to predict. I will also say there's an element of, I don't know if the audience knows this, we can all see each other's votes when we're doing the votes. And everybody, if they, like, because it's two series that if you want to make the big plays, you basically have to choose, all right, I want to catch up to this guy and bet against them. So you're going to see some spicy predictions every time.
It could be like me, who's just like not done any of that all split and have been slapping everyone around. So, I mean,
I have the logs of you telling me you could just match from now on. All right, don't try it.
And then you go back into it. Say, I have not just been matching, right? That's the thing here as well. But speaking of matching, we have 2 pairs on the side of each map here that are super important: mid and jungle, Middlecott. And back in week 2. Before we're still on 13-11, entirely new game, different patch, whatever. We had like that great Omen Indecision game compared with a great performance from Seneca on the Nautilus that shut down Verdant. Obviously, Verdant, they took revenge in the second round robin, but are we going to be seeing something similar to that today, right? Because that's the big deal. Omen has showed up so far in playoffs.
Yeah, well, I think this is the big thing as why I was referring to both these teams as quite form-based, because Omen and Indecision have been very flip-flop throughout the season. I think they both admit to that as players. They've been inconsistent, but They looked very, very good in that series against Ruddy. A lot more coordinated, making plays together. Omen was averaging 1,000 damage per minute over the course of that entire series, which is absolutely ridiculous in terms of numbers. So if they turn up, they can challenge the best in the league, and they're going to have to because Taxa and Nita have been two of the most consistent performers that we've had in the NLC. Taxa, this very cerebral jungler, and Nita has kind of just been a tier above every other mid laner.
Veteran, I know you're a man of many opinions, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think to add on to that, the big difference between Verdant and NORD going into this series, as I see it, is that in playoffs, that mid lane was just overloaded by NORD over and over again. And it wasn't just about Indecision Omen. Seneca was an absolutely huge part of that. You'd have these really early level free plays from Indecision, but then every single opportunity from bot to mid that could be done was done, even if it could potentially be at the expense of Hido. They knew how they wanted to play this matchup. They knew that they wanted to shut down MV carry. They knew they wanted to play through Omen. If they want to do that today, I actually think it would be very effective. Because if you watch Verdant's VODs, they typically just play all three lanes out, and they don't do these kinds of mix and matches in towards mid lane that NORD love to do. So I think they're particularly vulnerable to this, unless they just get huge advantages in the 2v2 on bot, right? And even though Wendell had some unfortunate accidents later on, his laning phase was pretty good, and he was finding those opportunities early against the Dem Voxnay lane, right? So that's the way that they win. They basically have to be the super team and win all three lanes, but if they give NORD that inch, you know, the Mar will be taken, and it'll be taken in the mid lane, and you're going to see another 1k DPM game from Omen.
Yeah, and I kind of want to talk to you about the the AD carries, right? I guess we still call them AD carries, right? Because sure, they play some AP here and there, but you're looking at Gooby, you're looking at Hido as well. You're looking at a very experienced ADC that has been around, played a lot in Italy, for example, as well. Then you have Hido, the only Maltese player in the inside of DRL, is completely new name, insanely strong solo queue player, has had probably some of the highest highs in terms of like multi-kills. We've seen like pentas, quarters, whatever from this guy, you name it, every single game almost. Do you think that Hido is going to usurp Gooby to a certain extent today?
I'd say that he'd already done that, honestly. Yeah. I don't think there's been too much of a competition specifically for playoffs. I think Gooby through regular season actually started out, like the first couple of weeks were a little bit shaky, then we got into a really, really powerful regular season and pretty much maintained that right until the kind of entirety of Verdant slumped. But as we look in through, honestly, the whole of the regular season, Hido was always performing, has been the most consistent player on this NORD roster when we've seen Indecision and Omen be that very volatile duo. Hido, and then through into playoffs as well, has continued to stabilize us as such, even though Omen in the last series was doing 1k DPM throughout the entire series. There wasn't a game where, for me, Hido looked bad. Was always right there with him, and if Omen had have fumbled the bag, I do believe that Omen would have been there to pick up the slack when necessary. So I think for the moment going into this series, I give the AD carry role specifically an advantage to NORD. Don't know how well I'd like to translate that to the bot lane as a duo and how well that impacts the map, obviously, from there on in. A completely different question. But in terms of just consistency of AD carries, Hido has performed better than Gooby for me this split.
I think an additional wrinkle to that whole discussion, though, is that we get stuff like the Seraphine out of Gooby, which offers this extra dimension in terms of the way that Verdant can look to play. Because when we looked at this Verdant roster coming into the split, we saw, okay, these are three lanes that can carry very, very strongly. We've got Gooby, we've got Nita, and then we've got Nilla. Hasn't really played out that way. They have been a lot more focused on Nita as a mid laner, but something that I think me and Rue were discussing a little bit earlier today is that we want to see Nilla on more of these split push, on more of these carry champions, especially when you're going up against someone like Catchcos, who is more willing to play tank champions that can give one of these split pushes a free laning phase and then can't stop them once the late game comes.
I will say there's a lot of burst on the side of Gooby when it comes to champ pool, and the way that NORD were winning in playoffs was by having good anti-dive champs on the side of Hido, right? So you had the Zeri, you had the Xayah. The Xayah's being the champion for him. We had a lot of Affilio Swan tricks, but if Hido had an equivalent, it was Xayah for a long time. all of the burst that Gooby likes to play when he pulls out stuff like the Ziggs, like the Twitch, even like the Seraphine, means that if they leave Hiddo alone, like they left him alone against Ruddy, he will go down. Right? He will go down straight up. So NORD do have to be a lot better on these timings than they were before.
Yeah, I think that's going to be super interesting to watch, right? Because again, I feel like a constant talking point about this team, as you also alluded to, Middlecart, was like, what can Nilla do in the top lane? And we saw a lot of Rumble coming through in the first round of playoffs, right? Rumble has been a pretty contested pick, it feels like, a very strong pick as well. And as you was talking about here, like, do you think, I'm going to throw this back to you as well, veteran here, with Rumble in the pool here now, is that something you should prioritize getting onto Nilla? Because we know that Catchcos very often just plays champions to just like give up laning phase to a certain extent.
Yeah. I think it depends on what you want Nilla to be for your team, right? If you want him to be a split pusher, then that's great. If you want him to try and match couch shots in these team fights, I think that's great as well. I think Rumble as a pick individually is a little bit too powerful to just let slide through the draft. So if it's not something that NORD want to pick up specifically, then I think you're banning it away, because Nilla looks way too good on this pick.
Yeah, I mean...
Thank you, veteran.
Turn the V, double it, you know.
Yeah.
You get the M for Middlecart. It makes perfect sense. I think that there would be an almost role reversal if you saw Nille going for the Rumble in terms of what we want, because one of the better matchups you can do into this, and we saw Fnatic pull this out, was the Jax matchup, right? Now, obviously, their Jax Sejuani wasn't so good, but I could see Jax Sejuani being something that Catchcos would be able to do. Yes, he does a lot of tank champions now, and he does just let the team roll on into midsection over and over again, but he does have a really long history as one of these kinds of carry top laners. It would be a bit of a role reversal. I would actually expect Catchcos to go on the Rumble and be like, I'm undiveable, try to do something, I'll just R the entire wave, you can't dive me anymore. Or make it very difficult when they actually go under his tower, and then just try to play team fights, right? And I would expect Nilla to be the guy on the Jax, right? Trying to snowball that lane.
So let's see how that is going to unfold, because the picks and bans are ready, guys. So take it away.
Woohoo! Okay, yes, we are into picks and bans, and instantly Verdant here on the blue side actually going to be banning away that
Very
Rumble,
useless
so
conversation.
not going to be able to see that one.
Or a
Again,
waste of time.
We'll get it at some point, veteran. Don't you worry. But we're also seeing
my point though, it got banned away from Catchcos. All right.
yes,
So my
no,
point
yeah.
stands.
Do you know what? Absolutely, and hopefully we're going to get to see him play it a little bit later on in this series. But we are seeing a few of these sort of engaged junglers being banned away in the Poppy and the Rel, as well as that Jace taken off the board by NORD.
Choice now for Verdant is, do they want to double dip on jungle bans, or do they want to maybe trade some of those power picks? Maokai and Sejuani both still open. Prefer the Maokai if I have my choice of junglers to take as a B1. But with Tristana taken off the board, I think this is going to be a very powerful pick for both of our mid laners as well. Verdant have been slamming AD carries in the mid lane, so Kaisers, Lucians even so far, also worth thinking about as we get later into the draft.
I think a big pick that is open here and is even more valuable with the Kaiser ban is the Azir, right? Omon, if you want to go for these kind of 1k DPM games, and the team wants to give you priority on the hyper carry, it is that Azir that you'd be looking to prioritize. Tristana's off the board, that's good into Azir. Kaiser really likes to play in towards an Azir as well. You can't get a Jace Maokai combo anymore as Verdant, or a Maokai Tristana combo. Azir goes up in priority, unless Niter has something like an artillery mage that he's happy to do, but it looks like they might just be wanting to do Xayah Rakan, which would be very on theme for how NORD have been playing. Rakan very contested across every support right now, but for NORD in particular, undiveable roam mid.
And it is Seneca's most played throughout the split. He's played 10 games of it across summer, won 7 of them, and you were highlighting the Xayah as kind of the pick for Hiddo as well. So NORD definitely getting a lot of what they want, but Taxa is a known threat on this Maokai coming out of the jungle, and a lock-in of the Azir would make a lot of sense for Niter too.
Now, of course, you could look to see Omon try and match with a control mage. That hasn't particularly... we've seen, honestly, a lot of styles from Omon. Me trying to pin him down as something like that seems a bit disingenuous, so... we may well get to see a bit of a default back to a farm-oriented mid lane, be it a Corki, be it a Victor and Azir matchup, something along those lines. Definitely very possible. For NORD, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they snap up their jungler, because they really need to take this Sedge as soon as possible. Otherwise, they're going to be really delving deeper in that jungle pool Now in Decision, we've seen his jungle pull be very happily tested, and he'll very, very frequently just pull out something completely out of left field.
So the hovers by Verdant were very heavy on this kind of pseudo MV carry champ pool that Oman has displayed in the past. Obviously, we're thinking about him now in playoffs as that 1k DPM. Nice call on the Sejuani, by the way. As that kind of 1k DPM player. But the Echo, the Kiana, those are viable picks in towards the Nazir as well. And those do feel like things that Oman could look to do, right? He was one of those burst-heavy assassin players. The Ahri was kind of his gateway into other kinds of champs. Ahri would feel like a bit of a waste here, going Ahri plus Sejuani. You have a very low damage midsection now. But it would somewhat synergize with the amount of dive that they have. A dive champion is very possible for Oman. Maybe they don't care about the prospect of Oman going an artillery mage. It wouldn't be something he's used to before. Whereas a melee champion with Sedge and with this dive, that could be the play.
I mean, especially when you consider the style of player that Kachkos is as well. We haven't really had much focus on top lane here, so stuff like the Ken and stuff like the Cassante who want to be diving with that sort of style are up and available for him to pick if he wants.
Looks like different priorities going into the second round of bans, though, and that is to be expected, right? We've got the bot lane fully fleshed out for NORD, where Verdant have dipped into their mid lane pool, so you're seeing those respective bans on either side. The Zeri taken away. Very likely to see another one of those long-range AD carries taken off the board. Ophelio's certainly no exception. And now you get to see NORD as well, see if their mid lane pool gets pinched even further. Bad matchups for the Azir. Maybe we get to see Oman go back to something like a static Shiv LeBlanc even in this game to offer a little bit of an AD damage profile for the midsection early on, and then be able to just be a nuisance in a side lane as well. And we're obviously talking about Nilla. Know that this guy rounds into exceptional form through the playoffs. Need to see that happen, and if there's somebody to try and match him in a side lane that doesn't have to be a tank from Kachkos, it certainly works.
He overed the Ahri immediately. Please don't be so boring. Don't be so boring.
I mean, we could have the possibility of Sejuani top, right? I kind of want to see an Evelyn.
Huh?
That's true.
Would be quite spicy for game one, but Indecision has been known to pull out the weird and the wonderful from time to time. Is
Oh my god.
gonna be that lock on the Ahri.
Can I interest anybody in some Merc treads?
And point and
Seems
click
like
CC.
a good buy here.
Right, like Verdant have already got the Nautilus point and click, the Maokai point and click. They have the tools to deal with a Rakan, and in doing so have the tools to deal with an Ahri as well, right? This is a difficult game to play Ahri in. It's a low damage game to play Ahri in. Hido's the guy who's going to end up having to do most of the damage in towards the team fights. He'll probably get very high damage numbers in the game regardless of whether NORD win or lose. But for a team that loves to be playing hard through mid, this is a very difficult one to do that with, right? So the Varus is interesting. I think Ahri loves that you pick that. I'm going to be real. That does give her something to play against.
Waiting for that blind pick to be fleshed out in the top side for Verdant now. I think this is that point where Middlecot's flex call obviously has a lot of stake. If they think that Sejuani is going to be fine versus it, they can go for something a little bit spicy for Indecision in the jungle.
I like the
Cheeky
Malphite.
Malphite.
I mean, the Varus can't really play into Rakan, Ahri, and Malphite. If they lock this in, it would be into a Renekton as well. Azir, right? Azir's walls do absolutely nothing against the Unstoppable Force. It has really good scaling here, even though obviously it's an AP mid-jungle. I like the Malphite. I think this Varus is going to have a terrible time.
So,
I don't like that pick. It should have been an Ezreal.
So do we feel like kind of what NORD have managed to do with their comp is they've drafted so much dive and so much engage that actually the tools that Verdant have aren't potentially going to be enough, Veteran?
Yeah, I mean, when they locked in the Varus, suddenly they had a low mobility carry into this, and they had to just figure out more ways to deal with the Azir, and the Malphite is very good against both a low mobility carry like the Varus, and does have tools that burn things on the Azir side as well. So, I like NORD's draft overall now. They do still need to have a good early phase, or they could potentially lack damage. We have seen Hido have those, though, on first skirmishes. We've seen this overloading of mid lane work out really well for them. So there are a lot of routes for NORD to be able to pick up a win here in Game 1. Verdant, on the other hand, yeah, in these group situations, in these skirmishes, you can see how NORD could win. They do have really good champions to just win lane here. Right, they have really good setups to just do that. So that's what they're going to do. Doesn't really matter. The enemy can have groupings if they can't have any groupings because they're too busy sitting on the tower like it's their mother's teat.
I think for me, the important part about these winning lanes are going to be that bot lane. We've highlighted the issues that come from a Varus and the low mobility aspect. I think pairing up with the Nautilus is maybe going to be able to offset a little bit of that, because by the time we see these groupings come through, as Vera mentioned, right, you're expecting to have a very substantial lead down on that bot side. Varus outranges the Xayah in auto attacks by 50 early on or just throughout the entire game. You can get lethal tempo stacked up on the Xayah, then yeah, of course, that's a little bit of an offset, but with a Nautilus as well, very proactive support means that you can very easily look for these engagements, try and take down Hido Seneca early on, try and generate yourself an advantage. We know that Wendell, a very proactive support player himself as well. Game number 1 of the series versus Natives, Verdant all over the map, and Wendell specifically, a very, very stellar Rakan game. No reason that we can't extrapolate that into being a very adept Nautilus player as well.
Eyes on Hido for this game, right? It's difficult to play out Ahri into the point and click of the Maokai and the point and click of the Nautilus, whereas Hido has the tools to be able to go through that, and especially they're burning everything on the Ahri. He is the man that has to be outputting the damage, right? He has to be playing around that Azir range, he has to be playing around that Varus range, but he is the guy that has to get in there and do the damage. If he's able to do that, right, and they're able to utilize their tools to nullify either the Varus or the Azir at the start of the fight, then Hido could definitely be the force to be reckoned with for NORD this game.
And that's a big responsibility, because this is his first competitive split ever. It hasn't felt like it at times because of how high the level of performance has been, but Verdant here, the planned level 1 invade against the side of NORD, but Seneca there enough to spot it out, and not just a spot in the finals on the line for both of these teams, but also a spot at EMEA Masters, at least the playing stage, so not just domestic success, but the possibility of European success for whoever comes out on top in this series.
Yeah, seeding, of course, undetermined, pending our finals this Saturday. You want to go back down to that Maltese AD carry, though, Hido. He's opted for the heal this game, which is really tricky for him to, just because he doesn't have cleanse. And yes, you're playing Xayah. Oh, I don't need to have cleanse if I have my ulti. I'm looking at all of the CC open to Verdant. 4 out of the 5 champions have something that you want to use your Emperor's Divide, or not even Emperor's Divide, use your Featherstorm for to get out of danger. And if you could use your cleanse for one of those, I would have certainly felt a lot safer, honestly, as Hido. But this heal is going to offer him a little bit of fighting power through the laning phase. So, foregoing a bit of that team fight capability for being able to scrap in the early lane.
Couchcos and Nille probably not going to be scrapping too much. Whilst the Renekton has a lot of strength in the early game, Couchcos has kind of just been this player throughout the split who has survived these rough laning phases and had bigger input in team fights. But Nille is likely going to be having the lion's share of the priority, and that could mean that Verdant can make some moves towards Herald when that spawns.
Also get to see Conqueror here for Niter. So very scaling rune once again. Oman opting for Electrocute, so there's that little bit more power through the laning phase, and just adds on to that Verdant happy to sit back, not particularly do too much narrative that we've had specifically from their series versus Natives. A lot of scaling on a lot of those champions. The Azir, the Varus, going to weirdly do very well later on with a lethal tempo AD carry.
I think the Electrocute speaks a lot to how Oman recognises that he's going to have a very short window to do anything in these fights, right? These point and clicks are going to be down. He's going to have to go in and make the damage count in that moment immediately as fast as possible. There's also something to be said if he's gone into Red Tree and he's gone for something like, for example, Ultimate Hunter, and he's gone for these early damages on the second stanza of the tree itself. He's also going for wave clearance.
Bot lane. I think Industry might be going for a gank attack, so attempting a dive. This is going to be risky. Stun comes through from Rooster's Predator. Nille tanking up initially. Catchcross flashes away. Taxa follows him. Oh, the trade of kills in top lane. First blood over to Verdant.
Nille's gonna like that though, right? Catchco's going to lose a bunch of XP under the tower there. Obviously he's going to be able to TP and it's not going to be completely game ending, but ultimately you make that play to make sure Renekton can win the lane, and that's still going to be a very good opening situation for Renekton, right? The wave's now going to be coming back in. Renekton can set it up for a repeat gank. You have camps on top side that you want to be doing. Your more valuable camps on bot haven't spawned yet, so Maokai could easily turn this into a repeat gank right now and just get Renekton really, really far ahead.
And that gank on the bot side, hold on.
Ubi has flash, has cleanse, going to be rooted, use the second summon spell, but it's
so
not enough.
greedy.
Hino getting aggressive in the laning phase and picks up a second for NORD.
Use your flash to dodge the knock-up. You know that Xayah root's coming. You know that there's plenty of damage in this 2 versus 2 early on. Very greedy play from Gooby to hold on to those summon spells for as long as he did. They just initially flashed the knock-up, then not had to burn the cleanse afterwards. And it's honestly fairly saddening if you're Taxa in this position, because you managed to find that gank up on the top side, had a very positive play for your top side, and down on that bot side it felt more like Indecision was warding off a play more so than anything, because Seneca had already burned double summoners. Hito also burned a heal down on the gank that we didn't get to see Indecision perform in the bot lane, and Gooby had both of his summoners left, so there was a summoner spell advantage for Verdant across all of their lanes. Unfortunately now, obviously not the case, and bot lane gets that first lead. It's Hito Xayah of all things that finds the first opening for NORD.
Indecision escorting Kachkos out the top side there. He knew that was a very, very risky moment for him, but look at the midsection, right? Seneca, off of that delayed reset on bot lane, right, that they utilized to make that play, immediately hovers around mid, enables Omen to do these trades, and Naito knows his supports showing up on bot lane, knows Taxa wasn't fully on the map yet, so he can't really aggressively trade back. The enabling of Omen is continuing in this series as it began on the Ruddy series, and Omen's starting to get some advantages from it.
This is a little bit cheeky from Tax, though, starting up the Dragon. Well, his bot lane does have priority, so they're going to be able to shift over, and NORD probably aware that this is going on now, but not going to be able to respond immediately, although saying that, Indecision
They have mid push.
waiting in the wings. Omen has level 6 as well, and Verdant will back away without contesting. Indecision now going to start it up.
Oh, it's, still half HP, so could very well see a flip here. Hito first access to bot wave, so if he can get over within enough time, it's going to be an advantage given over to the Xayah even further.
That Honeyfruit healing up Indecision, making sure that Sejuani can maintain position in the river. Gooby off to the side in the Tribrush. NORD now, after losing that mid lane priority, forced back. Neither team seems willing to give up this early Dragon. Indecision going into the pit, gets the Arctic Assault onto the Xayah. Oh my word, Indecision gets split back. Gooby with the kills, but it's Omen with a double. It's Omen with 3 in the bottom side river, and Verdant run for their lives, but only Lily has one anymore. That's 4 for 1 and a Dragon for NORD.
Omen just got so much value from the Ahri in this early stage of the game. 3-man Orb of Deception through the entirety of Verdant that were fighting in that choke. Managed to dodge out from the Azir shuffle to boot him all away. Indecision, may have actually died in that fight, but it's not the end of the world when you're getting 3-4 kills back, Drake on top of it. A worthy sacrifice there from Bristle.
Naito did a good job shoving the wave in, trading with Ahri to make sure she couldn't go back in, making sure the fact that NORD didn't make sure that they get mid prior before starting that Drake up mattered, but Ahri gave up the wave, right? Was going to be in a bad state, had to make that fight work if she goes for it on delay, and made it work. 3 kills immediately, almost a quadra kill in the opening phase. The team Verdant, that normally gets their advantages, playing all 3 lanes out on the first grouping, immediately fall to NORD, and now trying to play those 3 lanes out, looks like a very, very daunting prospect.
And I think that's a really important contrast that we need to make, that Omen was able to sack a little bit, got a good fight.
Yeah.
Because Gooby did the exact same thing, but had the opposite outcome. And this isn't a Gooby thing, this is like a team decision to say, okay, you can't go for that wave bot lane, we're fighting for this Dragon. So, bites the bullet, says, okay, but if this goes poorly, I've just lost a ton. Because Hito pushes an entire wave in on the bot side, manages to get up to the Dragon and has that wave advantage. Gooby, instead of finding the catch of the wave when the fight's won, is dead and doesn't get anything.
Okay, Verdant, though, not going to give up on these neutral objectives as Wendell and Gooby have rotated over for the Rift Herald, and NORD actually strong enough with the 3-person call that they've got here. Seneca roaming through the mid lane that Verdant are going to back away, and that's Possibly not as disastrous as the last objective that Verdant contested, but it's NORD finding a bit more pressure, and it looks like they're going to be able to get another prize for it.
Yep, they have all the priorities now, right? They're going to win bot lane off of that fight, they're going to win mid lane off of that fight, then they're going to be able to get these swaps. Verdant
They're going to be able to get the fight on this fight. Wendell flashing away. Indecision actually going back as Omen dashes forward. There goes the unstoppable force, and Gooby running himself.
As cleanse.
Will soon be dropping down, flashing forward from multiple members of NORD, and Omen with another one. NORD 8 kills to 2, 9 minutes in.
Really nice plays on this top side, making this Ahri pick, honestly, very worthwhile. We were concerned about this potentially lack of damage that they were going to have, but Oman through this early game has managed to utilize the early game of the Ahri, use this electrocute, and make sure that he is finding those kills. 4-0-2 now, working his way towards Alejandro's Anguish. Definitely in a position to carry for the team.
We were, and then we saw the Varus, and we were suddenly worried about a lack of mobility. I don't think Gooby's being allowed to have his flash up for more than 10 seconds this entire game. And whenever that thing is down, it's a Malphite, it's a Sedge, it's an Ahri, it's a Rakan. These guys are getting on you. You don't really have the tools to do anything about it. Your theoretical anti-dive tool isn't even up yet, and when it is up, well, Ahri's going to have all the tools to dodge it. Sejuani doesn't care if she tanks it. It doesn't make any difference towards the Malphite, and the Rakan is also a very slippery animal himself. Varus can't really function here at all, and with these damages now out on the entirety of the NORD team, the Nautilus, the Maokai point and click is not going to be enough to make up for that. All of the damage has to be done by Niter, but where's the burst really going to come from, given that Renekton wasn't able to be snowballed while you spent all of your time pretty much feeding the bot side?
Well, it almost feels like Veteran. It's not where, it's when, because we've talked about Verdant having this scaling composition, but it's NORD that have been setting the pace of the play. It's NORD who have been capitalizing on Verdant oversteps, have built themselves a pretty substantial, just around about 2.3 thousand gold lead at the moment. They've got these neutral objectives in their pocket too. Are we worried that our first place regular split team is going to be dropping a game this early on in the series, Rude Dude?
Yeah, generally fairly worried. I think Veteran hit on a lot of the issues that this Verdant composition is going to have a little bit later on. The fact that Gooby is not accelerated, not ahead of the curve on this Varus, definitely very scary. Niter going to have a big sort of weight on his shoulders to try and catch up to do the rest of the damage that you would be expecting from your AD carry. So it is a really tricky situation for Verdant to find themselves in. I do think that they've still got really nice setup around objectives, just things like Maokai and Nautilus. If somebody steps a little too far forward, you've got pick, you've got catch, you've got ways to get yourself into these fights. The question is, do you actually ever want to be in them? And for the moment, the answer is probably no.
I mean, right here, low mobility Varus is completely surprised by that Rakan knockup, doesn't even flash, as Voodoo pointed out. And then this fight, look at the amount of setup that they have. Verdant basically lined themselves up for it. Verdant, as a team, we were saying, in the early game, they want to just be playing out all three of these lanes. They want to deny NORD the skirmishes, but instead, they have the classic ERL obsession with contesting every single objective. This one at this point is basically not contestable. The enemy is far too snowballed, you're far too behind, Azir can't be there, Renekton can't be there, Hiddo will be there earlier than Renekton, you never have a numbers advantage there, you don't have an economy advantage anymore, and your composition, it doesn't want to do this. You wanted to play out lane, you wanted to win lane, that started going a bit badly by some cheese plays like the bot play from NORD, but the groupings, those were never going to be yours unless it was a really strong, fast situation for you to just get the neutral, get out, and get back to playing lane. Instead, they played NORD's game, and NORD are winning.
Yeah, and it feels like they're opting in. It's not necessarily the fights are being executed badly. They're just going for ones that they shouldn't be attempting to execute on. And I think this is a problem that Verdant sort of displayed in their series versus natives. They will commit to the call, and that's oftentimes a good thing, but sometimes the call just ends up being wrong, and the enemy team is able to come back, able to get a Baron, able to extend this series, send themselves to the final, and you're here facing off against a team in a matchup that maybe you shouldn't even be playing. So it's rough to see those mistakes coming out this early on in the series. We know that Verdant is a team that can have stamina in these series and push it later, but worrying signs. But what a boon for NORD, right? To be able to start off the series in this fashion, it's kind of perfect, Veteran.
Oh yeah, no, it is, and it is similar role reversal to last split, right? Like, NORD were the super team, Verdant were the guys that had to fall back on rookies. This time around, Verdant are the ones flexing their cash, trying to essentially buy their way all the way through, and NORD are the guys that had to fall back on these much more unknown rookies, and the rookies are once again winning. There's a lesson there to be learned. I feel like that we have to relearn every single split, but no one ever does. But I'm happy for Class to be in session once again, no matter which org it is that's doing it. NORD should be very proud of what they've done so far, because, yeah, you're right, like, the Verdant calls, they're just not there. The NORD calls are, but it's the Verdant calls you would expect to be on.
NORD on vision as they walked into the jungle here, so Wendell very appropriately takes this much safer pathing. Niter, now you're going to have to do the same.
I was aware there could be danger, but not aware where the danger's coming from. It's in your jungle. It's in your face. It's a second death for the Azir. NORD continuing to make plays.
Again, that for me is just a little bit too awkward. You know Taxa and Wendell are on their way through, and you're looking at the enemy champions, right? Ari Sejuani have insane engage range, unless you've got the reaction times to flash instantly.
Edo flashing instantly as the hook came out from Wendell, having to burn a couple more summoner spells than he would have liked there, but still, NORD with their Goldie feel confident enough to start up the Drake. Verdant just can't contest.
Okay, but it was another cheese pick. So the reason the bot lane pick against Varus worked out so well is because Varus, by all rights, was expecting Xayah and Rakan to just have recalled. If Xayah and Rakan are not recalled by that point, they can't get onto mid on any decent timing, they're off on all of their timings, they shouldn't have been in that rush. That's why Varus got caught out like that. The reason Niter was there is because if those guys aren't right now diving on bot lane, they're just going to lose midsection, and they're going to lose more from that and from a repeat dive on top that Verdant could do than if they showed up. But instead, NORD don't show up on bot. NORD, in fact, wait for Niter to hover bot side, ready to come in delayed to defend that dive, and they take him out with it. NORD are making small, you could say, quote-unquote, incorrect decisions, suboptimal decisions, but they're designed around the set plays they know Verdant will do, and they're catching them out as individuals for it.
Ooh, Omen being called out in the mid lane, just as we were singing his praises. It's going to get one more dash to safety, and actually, might be a turnaround play for NORD. Flashes back over the wall, gets the charm, down onto Niter! And Verdant, they thought they had a play, but NORD throw it right back in their face. Taxa twisted, advancing away, but Seneca, with the quickness, gets right on top of him. Double for indecision. NORD are running the show.
Oman had a beautiful play to escape there. He waits on his flash until Niter uses the Q. As soon as that reposition... No, Gooby!
Gooby, Edo with the movement. Oh, he's not been super involved since that dragon fight, but he's still making plays.
That's a feels bad for Gooby there. Just a slight little... It's such a subtle sidestep to get away with. But Hido, again, as ever, performing very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I think at this point, we just have to say it straight up. Like, NORD are so far ahead that if you're not able to make a fast burst play on them, you're going to lose the fight over time.
Yep.
And... Where's that burst? It's DPS on mid lane, it's DPS on bot lane. This isn't like a lethality Varus or something like that. Azir, we don't exactly think of some Luden's assassin champion, and he certainly doesn't buy his build path either. Renekton was going to be that burst. We haven't seen anything from the Renekton since the initial dive Taxa made, because Taxa's had to spend so much time not even putting out fires. The fire has come towards his jungle and has spread all throughout the forest, and the team has been having to defend that and be getting picked up progressively more and more. The entire game plan for Verdant's being disrupted. NORD are in the driver's seat. It's very difficult to see how Verdant could make the comeback play here.
Oman here first.
Those players are going to translate into objectives, into towers. Taxa is in the river, which isn't the usual place to find a tree. Omen is going to be able to dash over with the Spirit Rush. Charm going down onto the Marco, but he's still pretty tanky. Leandri's from Omen is actually going to be able to do a fair bit more damage, but Niter is here. Should his jungler require assistance. So burning the ult, but not gaining too much from it, but NORD still using their lead, getting things with it. They're not sitting on these early kills. They're pushing the tempo continuously, and Verdant don't have an answer.
Second Herald live as well, just in time for NORD to transition all of their members back up to this top side. You can see in the bot lane, Hido playing incredibly respectfully, basing so far under his turret that he can't possibly get picked off by the duo of Verdant. So complete neutral objective dominion going the way of NORD through this early game. 2 Drakes, 2 Rift Heralds, starting off this game with an absolute banger. 5k to the good. Their gold lead matches the fact that they've got these neutral objectives in their back pocket as well.
Wonder where this Herald's going to be dropped. They've only taken out bot tower, right? And they have the option with the map tempo they have to just put their bot lane on towards top, play that out, keep running them around the map, right? It is on Verdant to put their ADC, their support in towards midsection to try to counter that play. It does look like they want to do that. Any other state of the map, they're just going to lose faster and faster and faster. But the question is, where do you want to drop the Herald, right? I think you just drop this mid, you get that priority, take the Drake from it, and possibly just take out mid tower in one swipe, and then the top tower will fall very, very easily. Bounties are up on the towers at 16 minutes for Verdant. So if you give up this tempo for that Drake, you do give up a lot more, and it's not that worth. So they do need to make sure that this Herald is used for tempo to make sure that Verdant don't get a trade off, because a trade now will be very valuable.
You see, they're just going to push in this mid wave. The charge just takes this down. Drake spawns in 5 seconds. The timing on all of this from NORD, generally speaking, very impressive.
I think that's the thing. It's been so complete a game from them. They've not only continued to force these successful fights, but they've been picking up all these objectives basically on time, and that's going to ring alarm bells, right? Because Verdant need to contest a team that is not only playing faster than them, but a team that also seems to be as smart, if not smarter than them in this series.
I mean, they... if the game of League of Legends is all to do with taking every objective, then NORD are the guys that drafted for that purpose. Verdant don't even seem to understand what their composition wanted to do. They also seem to be very uncoordinated on those contests, right? Like on that initial Herald contest, you had the bot lane on top side there, you had a kind of non-committal taxer there, but Azir couldn't even be there. Like, what were the comms going on there? This is a very NORD play.
Yeah, and it appears to be working, but here comes Seneca to provide some CC, and
No
Omen is surviving! Omen is thriving, and Verdant are moaning that their champions don't do enough damage. Unstoppable kill for the Ahri, his 5th of the game, and game
Lovely
1,
snipe.
I almost want to call it done here. Verdant getting massacred in the top lane as NORD find 3.
Yeah, we can chalk it up, guys. 14-2, you're not able to find the pick with Maokai Nautilus on your side. The wallet diff is just going to hit a bit too crazy. Yes, Knight is able to secure an objective bounty down on that bot side, but overall, NORD are just getting rewarded everywhere they go.
There's a world where Nyla does enough damage to make that work, but that was a world where you got repeat ganks off on top side, you were able to heavy snowball the Renekton ahead. Otherwise, you're a losing team with a useless champion. The options just don't feel like they are there for me, not to be completely doomer, but honestly, where is the fast play? And if you can't make fast plays, how does the Ahri Xayah team struggle, especially given the minor technicality that they are 7.2k gold ahead?
And Aragon just turning in his chair right now, hearing you call Renekton a useless champion. How dare you, with such a... such a lead that Nyla was able to build up. Look at that assist differential. Oh wait, yeah, it's just all NORD at this point. Catch costs. You mentioned it earlier on, and when you mentioned that Nyla had that early assist, there was a 10 CS difference in his favor, and it's just one of those things that does not matter. That's the only advantage that you found for your top side for this Renekton versus a Malphite. What was even the point? Catch cost has been unmovable on that top side, found a kill back when he got dove, more than happy to take his trades.
I'm of the strong belief that each series has its own individual meta that crops up over time.
No, Omen, you can't just do this in Tax's face. Nita, your mid lane is
Wow.
dead! Your mid lane is dead, Nita! And you've just watched him be assassinated. Omen, oh, if that charmed, the turnaround kill was potentially there, but
I think
I
Niter
don't
knows,
know
mate.
what that was.
I think Niter knows, mate. He's the one that died.
Yeah. Niter got given a little bit of the smoke right there, and Indecision didn't even have to be there to answer that top play instead. More than happy to just group up with Seneca, make sure that they're securing vision. They've got Soul spawning in 2 minutes' time. You see down on that bot side a little bit of vision already layered. We've got a couple of pink wards through the river, so NORD's game plan for here should be fairly rudimentary. They've got about 20-30 seconds before they need to head back down to that bot side and sort of defend any vision before that Drake spawns. So they can spend a bit of time up here.
Might be engaged on. Seneca going to turn with the quickness into Grand Entrance combo. Beautiful stuff coming through. Hido keeps getting the kills. NORD keeps winning. The fight Zilla is going to teleport in to his doom. It's a triple for the Xayah. Niter running away, jumping over walls, chased relentlessly by Omen, and NORD find a clean ace.
I think Taxa was just staring into the void on the top lane play, saw the future, saw that it was all death, and then met that future about 10 seconds later with this play. Hido outputting obscene levels of damage, the point and click that can hold down the Ahri, though as we've seen there appears to be absolutely no damage to do anything about that with. Just useless against Hido on this Rakan with that ultimate. Man didn't even have to burn flash, and the fact that there's no damage is just a cherry on top from Verdant. Very, very clean fight. Hido's damage that's probably going to be pretty high at the end as predicted at the start. And yeah, I mean, one tower down on bot though, you know.
Yeah, I mean, safe for that tower and those 2 kills. NORD are almost perfect gaming Verdant, and this completely throws all of our expectations for this series out of whack. Apart from if your name is Rudu, then you've got the biggest brain in the world. Omen potentially going to bet picked, but Verdant, it doesn't seem like they even recognised that the Ahri was here. Meanwhile, the rest of his team is getting engaged on in the jungle. Kaxos has teleported in the backline of Verdant. Is being beaten up by NORD. The Malphite ulti is a potential here. Verdant are grouping up. He's going to get it onto 2 into the backline. It's not clean, but it doesn't matter. NORD wipe the floor with Verdant. Are going to grab 1 more kill for themselves. Another triple for Hido as Omen finally went down in the melee. Dragon is on the board. Towers to take as well. NORD's, it's just a victory lap at this point.
And it's a minus 10 stacks on the Medjai's for Oman. That's like the smallest copium that you can find as Verdant in this situation. Tax is getting chased to literally the other end of the map. 0 chance of him getting in to stop the Soul. And with NORD being so far ahead, 13,000 gold, they don't have to be specific. They don't have to be clean with their engages. If Catch Cost only finds 2 with a Malphite ulti, doesn't matter. They want to spend resources going for mid lane and bot lane at the same time. It does not matter. They're so far ahead. This game is so over that NORD can do what they want on the map.
There's some good news here though, right? Which is that at 3 kills, they are now 2 kills away from getting their ultimate stacks finished.
Ooh, true. They just have to kill Hido, who's almost highest level in the game, 9 kills and double item on everybody in the game.
Which
but
means
he doesn't have
also
cleanse.
get a bigger bounty. True.
True.
No cleanse.
I mean, it really is copium at this point, but how do you even react to a game like this as Verdant coming through as, not going to say favourites because of the predictions of certain people, but definitely a team that could have been reasonably predicted to win, but now you are falling apart. You're going for Hail Mary engages in your own jungle, and you can barely scratch Indecision, so when the damage turns up, it's gone. It's over. More and more kills for NORD. This is going to be the final fight of the game if they're able to push through a result of this. And it's going to be a lot of questions for Verdant to answer in the brief time between this and game 2. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to end it quite yet, but mid lane inhib down, bot inhib soon to fall.
A matter of time at this point. The game now plays itself for NORD. In case they didn't have a big enough lead in the gold department, the map state is just so favourable for them. They're going to have pushing super minions mid lane, super minions bot lane. They can go 5 to the top side of the map, sit and wait for the super minions to crash into Verdant's base. The second somebody shows on the Nexus turrets, you can just dive. You've got Malphite, you have Sejuani tanking these turrets is a formality, and NORD should be able to close this out without the need for the next Baron, the Elder. These types of things, they're great if you need them to snowball an advantage, but NORD, they've got everything in the world that they could need for this map state.
I'm just staring into the void and feeling what it's like to be Taxa.
It's just awful, but you've got to play a rest of the series after this game, right? It's not all over. Best of 5, still plenty of chances to come back, but...
And I dare say as well, this is one of those... For me, in this situation, I'd actually find this really easy to come back from. Because you just go, well, you know what? We shouldn't have taken that first Drake fight. Or, oh, well, maybe with that first Drake fight we could have taken, but we, like, scuffed it, and then we just shouldn't have taken the second Drake fight. That's a very easy fix that you can just say, have a coach go, okay, you don't win first Drake fight, don't fight it. And then you just go again.
Okay. I'm gonna have to go on point there. What's gonna happen there is one person says that, right? That you... Okay, so it's over, by the way. I'm gonna ignore
absolutely
this.
over. There's
One
completely
person
nothing
says,
to be done. Yeah.
One person says, alright, okay, we should never have taken the Drake fight. And then the person who made the call, now being accused essentially of losing the whole game off of it, is going to be like, no, we could definitely have won the Drake fight. And the whole situation gets exacerbated, and that you get nothing productive from it, and you have to tell them to calm down, and that atmosphere is going to go terribly until they manage to get a win, which they have to get the next game. Right now, the best thing that you can do is not even talk that much about that game and just focus solely on the draft. If the coach decides to make the whole focus of it the draft for the next game, he is tacitly taking responsibility for how that game went. And you need to take that on yourself, be the sacrificial lamb, so to speak, because any other kind of conversation will just get... It's just going to get them all rolled up in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right? So just focus on, we're going to ban this, all right? Can you play this if we first pick it? Blah, blah, blah. Just have to go like that now between these games.
Expunge it from your memory, essentially, because...
Yeah.
Not a coach, not a player.
You're not going to improve in 15 minutes. That's something you have to
take
realize.
much from that game. You just got to completely reset. But I think for Verdant, though, they do have these veteran presences that have been in bad situations. I'm not sure if they've ever lost a game as brutally as that one, but they've been in these tough spots in playoffs where they are down. You've got people like Taxa, who's going to be a calming voice there. I think Niter is a guy who has been extraordinarily successful as a player, very, very experienced there. So I think there are these voices on the team that can help recover from that, but the issue is that was one hell of a shellacking.
A bit brutal to be, but honestly, nice. Calling that a bit brutal is probably the nicer end of the spectrum for what we could have gone for. I do want to credit NORD, though, for that, as much as we're talking about Verdant's going into game number 2. NORD going into game number 2.
Yep.
Should we do that again, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, wonderful stuff. I mean, they took a great early fight. They managed to snowball their leads. They went to top lane, right? They just played the map as best as they could do. They got every neutral objective. They took every fight that they wanted to. They won every fight that they needed to. I mean, like, where do we critique,
Look,
you know?
You say that was a bit brutal. I say that was the single most one-sided victory I've seen since Verdant v Natives Game 2
I
in
was
regular
being
split.
nice.
Okay. Well, with that, the path for NORD is simple. Just do that 2 more times. The path for Verdant a little bit more complicated. We are going to be back with Game 2 of this semi-final in a few minutes. All right there. Welcome back, everybody, to the NLC, to this semi-final matchup between Verdant and NORD. NORD able to take game one in what appeared to be a committee pretty commanding fashion. Veteran, am I right?
Very, very commanding fashion, right? The ranks on the other side just completely and utterly collapsed. The morale is gone. It is over. The war is basically lost on this one, right? They've encircled them. They've destroyed them. Winter has come. Everything, all of that, right? All that good stuff, okay?
Yeah.
And the question is, like, can Verdant come back from it? Because it would take a lot of mental fortitude for them to be able to do so. And that performance, I mean, let's be real, compared to our expectations for this lineup, that was just shameful, right? It lacked a basic understanding of what it is that they want to do with their composition. They played directly into what NORD want to do in theirs. They weren't able to show anything on an individual level, on a group level, on an anything kind of level. If you're going to have holes in your draft of things that you can't do, don't try to do them.
I mean, yeah, there's not really a better synopsis that I can offer.
Yeah.
It is a look forward type of angle into what the Verdant go for, because they now get side selection for this game. With side selections determined, I think Verdant will have got game number 1 as the higher seed coming into the series. So they get side selection for that first match. They will have picked blue side there. I have to see whether or not they pick blue side once again as the losers.
I believe they have done. Rudu just got confirmation from production that Verdant have picked the blue side. So, same as before. Do we see adaptations in the draft, or do we feel, Ru, that it needs to be more gameplay stuff?
God damn it. Yes, we see adaptations. You ban Xayah. It's Hido. We know this. Like, every team gives Hido Xayah game 1, lose game 1 immaculately, and then they're like, hey guys, that Xayah champ was pretty good. Hido seems to be okay at this champ. Let's ban it away.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is Hido's version of Aphelios, right? He's not like Liam Cole, right? Where it's Aphelios all the time. He is the Xayah guy, right? So I'm glad that that's gone. Also, obviously, beautiful synergy with the most contested pick, which is that Rakan. I'm interested to see how far up in priority the Rakan goes in this series until we start to get it first picks all the time. But yeah, I do like the opening grab from Verdant. If you can't deal with Hido on it, don't deal with Hido on it, you know?
If you don't have an answer, don't let him take it in the first place now. Dropped ban for this is either going to be Rumble or Tristana. Obviously, NORD may want to pick one of those up in favour of dropping one of their bans. It's not the case so far. They banned Rel, Jace, Kai'Sa. So far, they're 2 for 2. Obviously, Verdant, they've had to drop one of the two. So Rumble, a potential first pick for Verdant, or the ban here for NORD. And then you open up things like Kai'Sa or Rumble as the option for depending on what NORD go to.
Could opt to first pick that Maokai. Again, though, we were saying that we could have a potentially contested jungle pool here. We've seen Indecision has been quite focused in terms of the champions that he's willing to play. It has been a lot of the Poppy, the Maokai, the Rel, the Sejuani, and actually going to be the Maokai banned away on the red side by NORD themselves. So Verdant, they've got that Rumble open and available for them to pick up.
So it's interesting because now Sedge Prio really increases, because previously you'd been trading the 2 S-tier junglers of Maokai and Sejuani, so maybe you feel like you want to go for the Sedge as an opening, but NORD here, they've got a choice to, I think they get 3 power picks here, because we have Rumble, Kai'Sa, and Sejuani open. Verdant only get 1, NORD are going to be able to take 2 if they want them.
They are so worried about giving NORD things that they might really want that they're now picking them for themselves in a way that doesn't necessarily complement how they've been playing the game. The Kai'Sa ban was the drop ban, and that was very interesting because it indicated that NORD may really be dead set on this Xayah, Zeri, Kai'Sa kind of trio that they've had success on with Hido, right? Like, we all remember that Ashe game that Hido had at one point. He had a really good Ashe game once, but it was very flippy the next time he got it. These seem to be the 3 champions he's been performing on, and they dropped the Kai'Sa ban when they saw the Xayah ban done. Instead of trying to play around with that, they want to pick away what they believe is going to be a big contested pick for the series, which is the Rumble. They have the Sejuani with it, but with that, you now basically have double AP on top side, and Naito pretty much has to go for his old school Yasuo, Yone, Tristana's down, Jace is down. It's very restricted for them, and I don't really see that many tools to deal with the Kai'Sa.
And no real surprises from NORD. If they are going to lock this all in, I think Catchcos has made his name on that champion a little bit. And then the Nautilus for Wendell, again, something that fits into his wheelhouse. So it doesn't feel like Verdant are feeling like they're massively changing things up yet. We'll have to see what adaptations come through in the second phase of bans and picks.
And this on that top side, we'll have to see whether or not they want to take away. Well, actually, they know what they're going up against top lane, so it is just catch cost going. I don't really care that this is going to be an awful matchup. Rumble versus Melees. We've heard Aragon say it time and time again. Rumble's going to win this top matchup. The onus is on Nille to win harder than we saw him win in the last game. Previously, 10 CS 10 CS lead into an assist is not the advantage that you need out of a top lane that is favoured for you. So, hoping for more from Nille this game.
And interestingly, we are actually starting to see a little bit of that focus towards the jungle pool of indecision from Verdant. I'm going to be interested to see if they're going to want to focus that even more, but they have got those 4 main picks off the board. So we've seen this guy take stuff like Nocturne into the jungle with mixed success, but Azir not going to be playable for Nita, nor is his LeBlanc.
The Azir ban's definitely a very weird one for me. There would have been triple AP topside. Suddenly your picks become really obvious because you're running Kai'Sa, you're running Rakan, and Galio is open right now. So I don't think I would have cared if they went for that triple AP. It's interesting then because Yone is up. Nita's a very strong Yone player, very strong Yasuo player. Enemy's not going to get Ahri. He's likely to just get something he can accelerate with those kinds of champions on. And he'll do a very good job at it. He's going to have good synergy with the Sedge. He's going to have very good synergy with the Rumble. Because these are going to be very high damage champions you have to build resistances for. So it's a difficult game for Omen. Yeah, I don't think this was it. That would be very on theme, by the way, if you wanted to go a Galio into a potential AP mid, by the way. So Nocturne, Kai'Sa, Rakan, it does something really well, right? It dives over and over again. It skirmishes over and over again. If you're ever in a 3v3, 2v2, you 100% win that because you're just going to insta-give someone at the start of the fight and go 3v2, 2v1, or what have you, right? So this is another composition where NORD are going to get to play that super strongly. And the Zeri is a very interesting pick given this, because the Nocturne can get on top of her, the Rakan can match her, the Kai'Sa is so strong in towards the Zeri. I'm not really liking these Verdant drafts, to be honest.
And I do think that looking at how, whenever you're looking at an AD carry versus Nocturne, it's always awful. First of all, you're going to get jumped on regardless. Shocking. There's that Yone that you were alluding to, Veteran. So nice to see Nita going to be able to bring a bit more AD damage to the damage profile of Verdant for the most part. But you're looking for an AD carry on the bot side that can get away from a Nocturne Fear. If you can't, you just have to take Cleanse. Zeri's one of those champions that you can get away with if you're stuck near walls, but then you can never use your E proactively.
Slam Malphite, do it.
Ooh!
Okay.
So the Swain, I was actually worried about Verdant potentially picking, because that is, if you're going to go with Yone on mid lane, Swain is the single hardest counter to Kai'Sa in the game. So if you end up with Yone Yasuo mid lane and you end up with Swain bot lane, you do effectively shut down that Kai'Sa, you shut down their potential to dive you. Now the Swain has really obvious good counterplay into the pseudo dive composition that Verdant's got. He has a lot of sustain. He's not just going to get one shot maybe in the laning phase, but if he's able to get escorted through that, not so much. And he can kind of be that sustain tank in the backline along with the Ornn while the rest of the team goes into dive. So there isn't that much for Verdant to do if they're able to get the Ornn on the backline either. I love the Swain pick. I love the options that they have here, right? Kai'Sa's a bit more of a poke champion these days as well. I think NORD have got really good options on this draft. And once again, it feels like Verdant kind of choked it on the last 2 picks. They had really good options available, but then they ended up with a suboptimal set of carries into what their opponents have got planned.
Well, I think if we kind of look at what both of these compositions want to be doing, right, Rue? How does that change from Verdant for last game? Because it did feel like their intended style of just playing it out nice and slow through the lanes got completely shut down through NORD. And it does feel like they've got a few more tools here that mean that they're not going to be able... that they don't feel obliged to do that, but they can also compete a little bit more in these early skirmishes.
Yeah, I do think that you have skirmish capabilities with Yone, with Sejuani, right? You've got double solo lanes that are both melee. You've got Nautilus still on the map, so it's not the worst case scenario where if you want to look for fights, and I think this is important that it's pre-level 6, because, you know, you're looking up against things like Nocturne, like Swain, their level 6 turn on is very, very big. So you're looking to get those fights probably about that level 4, level 5 marker, and then generating those fights isn't necessarily easy. Maybe that first Drake of the game we see this time forfeited by NORD because they know that their level 6 spike is so huge, and if they can take a fight around a Herald perchance, that's when their team composition really starts to hit. So I think Verdant, they have a little bit of an onus from me to maybe try and take that first Drake of the game, just leverage a little bit of that earlier power. But again, as soon as they hit level 6s on both squads, it just becomes super difficult for Verdant to try and take these fights.
Ooh, okay. Don't see that all the time.
Hey, middle cart. There's a new way for Verdant to find a win.
Well, I mean, Swain is a champion that spikes pretty hard at 6 and is quite vulnerable pre-6, especially now without that flash.
I like ganking mid.
My favourite part about that is that it could be completely apropos of this game. Obviously, it's specific because of the flash being taken down. I just have Veteran now as a diehard jungle main that will go mid-level 2 as Jarvan.
I mean...
I don't think I've ever seen you play a game of League of Legends, but that's now what I imagine.
Honestly, like, the last time I was heavy maining jungle was the Graves meta, and I just sat in enemy jungle the whole game, and kind of ignored my lanes. But yeah.
Okay.
I'm not a Mal runger. But I love ganking mid, and both teams love to gank mid here. You have NORD that drags Seneca even for this job. They love ganking mid so much. And you have Verdant love ganking mid so much that they burn the flash level 1. So you do have really good options here on both sides. But obviously the first advantage is towards Verdant. They need to get another one, given that they don't usually drag Wendell for these kinds of plays, at least not to the same frequency as Seneca. This is going to be a mid lane centric game again, but that's what we expected the series to look like, right? Most important player for Verdant is almost definitely, I saw how you guys all voted, their mid laner, and for NORD, it's all been about that mid section for the playoffs.
Absolutely. I think the questions that we had of Indecision and Omen, whether they could match the level that they'd shown against Ruddy, have been answered with an emphatic yes so far in this series. Now, the NORD jungler has been quite inconsistent on this Nocturne, which has been one of his pocket picks. Not often, sometimes finding a little bit of a mismatch on the engages. Wendell getting an engage in the bottom lane here. Seneca with a knockup from the ground entrance, but it's him and Hido on the run. Decent play in the early game, burning the flash away from the Rakan.
Curious W placement from Seneca there. Not sure if he was trying to get a double knock-up or just stop Wendell from being able to continue getting auto-attacks down, but I feel like that would have been much better spent onto Gooby. Maybe he gets his AD carry away and maybe means that you don't have to burn a flash. Not quite sure. Nevertheless, they do manage to get out to safety, and it's only a couple of combat summoner spells traded by Verdant where the flash from Seneca is now down. So the playmaking capability of this Rakan a little bit removed, and once again lends itself to these first few minutes of the game being very much Verdant favoured, and then upon that level 6 marker, about when you expect Seneca to get his flash back, we start to see NORD be able to make some plays again.
Indecision, quite strong right now. I remember back in the day when Scuttle spawned at 215, Nocturne was a heavy prio pick because at level 2 he literally destroyed everybody 1v1. But Seneca's still going to be there to escort him just in case of a contest. And it looks like Sejuani's trading sides. Has the more powerful top. Yeah. Bone plate down.
People just aren't used to lethal tempo melee champions, I don't think.
True.
This is the... That's why, as well, Nocturne honestly feels very scary trying to take these trades, because a lot of junglers earlier on reliant on their... Oh, he gets interrupted.
Oh, he gets interrupted on the dash into the stun from Taxa, who makes another early visit to the top lane and gets another kill for himself.
Will this one have any repeats on it, though? Right, last time around, they got the initial kill. They even got the crash on it. This time, Catch Coast isn't actually going to be as punished as he was before, at least in terms of that CS, right? The wave wasn't in such a horrible position. Nocturne is there to be able to escort if he needs anything else, and Rumble hasn't been able to recall to capitalize on that kill. So honestly, right now, item advantage is actually on Catch Coast. It's all about, can you get him out? Can you get the Rumble out of this lane now before they do something about it? Because this gang is squarely in Indecision Catch Coast's favor, even if Sejuani's here.
No flash.
No flash for Nille. Indecision's going to follow with his own, gets the fear down, and cuts through the Rumble's health bar. A little bit of revenge for NORD on the top side.
Yeah, the answer's no.
Just a flat no. It might only be a little thing, but I am a fan of Catch Coast giving the kill over to Indecision there. You can see he just walks away, knows that the Nocturne's got that locked up. Taxa makes his presence felt down on that bot side, not particularly able to get anything, but again, early game from this Sejuani proving to be just that little bit better so far. Obviously we know Nocturne trying to power farm up till level 6, make sure that Paranoia gets online as soon as possible. So it's good to see Taxa making those proactive moves prior to that window.
As a Season 4 Nocturne aficionado, whenever I couldn't get Vi, I also approve of the Nocturne getting the kills, because getting that Nocturne level 6 to be as strong as humanly possible, that should be the objective for the team. I just want to say, I believe that's true regardless of the jungler, to be honest. I think getting the early kills on jungle actually matters. The jungle item spike is still the most powerful one in the game. But on Nocturne in particular, that's the difference between him assassinating somebody straight up or not. If he's able to be completely solo and proactive everywhere, that's insane. He uses these tools better than most because he is a carry jungler, right? This is a carry jungle matchup against this kind of weak little Sejuani, not really a jungler. Everyone memes themselves into... Elder junglers are like, okay, I think Sejuani is S tier, so that their Chad laners don't beat them up in the locker room afterwards, alright? But in reality, champions like Nocturne's still where the game is at, right? And he is ahead.
Well, we're talking about Chad laners, and that's exactly what Verdant have locked in for themselves, right? You've got 3 carries with this Rumble Vanilla, so I guess you get even more onus on Indecision to get himself to an accelerated state, because even if you are going 1-for-1, that's still 2 carries on the enemy side that are going to be left up.
Small part of me just...
Here we go again. I love ganking mid lane.
Taxa is level 6, and Indecision isn't.
Should get it off his red buff, so it's not going to be a delayed Nocturne level 6 by any means, but obviously Taxa gets to flex out onto the map at this point, and now Oman obviously level 7, Catch Cost has hit that level 6 marker. That early game window that we mentioned for Verdant has begun to slip away. Herald not spawning for another 30 seconds, and
yeah, his timing is so weird.
yeah, I mean, Seneca's still level 4 as well, so it's like the supports aren't even close to level 6 either. This is a particularly strange one.
Oh, flash from Wendell. Well, if he gets a kill out for it, maybe it's worth. Catch Cost with the stacks, with the stun coming through. Nille chasing him down with the Electro Harpoon and the Flame Spitter to finish him off. Well, we said that Verdant needed to make repeat visits to top lane. They've done exactly that.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. Seneca was doing his own to kind of defend jungle, defend mid, NORD a very mid-centric team in that regard. Whereas with Verdant, they're like, okay, we're not really here for the Herald timing. Maybe we can make a play through mid towards a Drake, I don't know. But that Wendell opened up around top side anyway, and they're making that lean towards top. If NORD are going to overload mid, maybe the series will then be defined by Verdant overloading top in response and trying to put Nille ahead.
And once again, right, Nille being ahead, a win condition that those of us that remember Verdant from Spring are going to be all too familiar with. Definitely the leading source for Verdant making their way to EMEA Masters. Special shout out to E-Roll as well, the mid laner from Spring, who's also had a very big impact in their role to this. Okay.
Yeah, well, we're talking about E-Roll, we're talking about plays in the mid lane. First ult from Indecision gets a flash out of Nita, but nothing more, and with Verdant being in a pretty strong place in this early game, you would hope from the north side to get more out of that engagement. Seneca and Hito both roaming up, but shouldn't be able to find anything.
Seneca in mid lane? No way. No.
What parallel dimension is this? Holy wow. Also,
Catch Coast as well.
Oh, Nita ulting back, still going to get hit.
Oh.
Flash forward from Catch Cost.
Hey!
Gets the dive under the tower. Taxa with the stun. Makes it a 1-for-1. Omen low on mana. Wendell moving over. The Sejuani chasing the Nautilus here. Gooby here as well. It's a whole party in the mid lane. But only Dione goes down.
just barely made it through on towards that minion, so Wendell couldn't get the hook on him. Wendell doesn't have 6, so it's not as simple as just hook there and press R or something like that. Had to be able to land the hook on Omen, but Omen just able to get away. That was a sick play by Catch Coast, though, right? He went all in. He was committed to that thing. Was able to land the knock-up, the poke, the initial R2, and everything, and set that up beautifully for Omen. The overloading of mid lane has worked out again for NORD. Verdant were able to respond, but that response didn't really get them anything at all. It just allowed them to escort their wave in. They're behind on those midsection plays, but they are still ahead on those topside ones.
Yeah, no. Worth mentioning that the, I suppose, response from Verdant was across 2 lanes as well. Overall, 3 plates secured. There was 1 top lane, 2 mid lane. For Verdant down on the spot side, you could just see on the bottom left there, Hedo only managed to pick up 1 plate for himself. There's a 1-for-1 in those kills. Got a lot of free time on Nilla. Gold in his back pocket. Early demonic embrace has been finished. I think that looking toward these Drake fights now in a couple minutes time, Verdant should be very favoured actually as they head into those. We've not really seen too much from the level 6 marker of Omen, of Indecision, right? That early paranoia gank. And Ben Knighter's flash. There's a window for him to try and re-gank this mid lane, but look at how nicely Knight is playing this wave. Using it just in a position that he can't really get ganked.
Oh, maybe you can set up for a gank if Wendell wants to get things going. No longer going to be in the bush as Omen gets the shove under the tower, securing that priority. Has had a decent time in the laning phase versus Knighter, but like you said, hasn't really been able to get much efficacy out of this Swain pick as of yet. But for Verdant, it feels like they've very much recovered from that game one, put it out of their minds, have built a 2,000 gold lead for themselves and are looking very, very good. Omen, they get hit from over the wall. The Hex Flash going to come through as well. Engaging on the Swain at this point is dangerous, but the backup isn't quite there from NORD. Here comes Seneca, grand entrance with the quickness, and Niles 2P looks a little bit too late. Still able to output a fair bit of damage here on the Rondel, but once again, it's NORD winning these early fights, and once again, Omen gets 3.
4 versus 3 as well. NORD, numbers disadvantage, taking that fight. The teleport, as you mentioned, Middlecott, somehow just a little too late. Nilla comes in when his team's already dead, and Seneca there. Massive Rakan engage to keep the team locked up.
Yeah, Seneca staring at them like, you fool. You've only adopted the mid lane this series. I've been there for 5 games in a row, baby. And goes straight in, swoops in with a triple knockup. Perfect timing. You have to feel like when it comes to these mid lane skirmishes, which team feels more comfortable about that? It's 100% NORD. This has been working out for them. It's continuing to work out. It's basically a set play for them now. I just think you don't fight NORD around this area if you want to win this series. The game has to be based around Nilla, right? It has to. Yes, Katros on Ornn will find a way to be useful, okay? It's a tank, all right? Tanks can be 0-8 and still be useful in some way. But Nilla doesn't have another way to be useful, right?
Nilla's 8-0, that's a good thing.
Exactly, right? Like, we've seen Renekton's be 100 CS ahead and still be useless. You need to heavy snowball that. On Rumble, you still need to be heavy snowballing it. Don't think about it as great. We've got top slightly ahead. Let's bring him down towards midsection, not into NORD. That's not how this game is going to be played. That's not how this series is going to be played. NORD had prepared for that in the way that they play out every single game for the second half of the split. You have to make this all around Nilla, like we begged you to do so right at the start.
And the second paranoia and demonic ascension combo looking a lot better. Indecision Omen continuing the great run of form that they've displayed in these playoffs so far, and have clawed NORD back the advantage in this game. 6 kills to the good with 30 seconds until that Drake spawns. Key itemization close for Niter on this Yone in the mid lane. Looks like he's going towards a Blade of the Rune King, but crucially hasn't got it yet.
He's so far behind, actually. If we look at those items, right? Riley's already finished for Oman. Got a catalyst in his inventory as well. So just by far and away, he's outpacing the Yone in terms of gold, in terms of items as well. And when I said that Verdant probably can look toward this dragon, they didn't nearly have this deficit, didn't nearly have this disadvantage that they would have to play against. Seeding this one, probably just the better move. You know that Oman has ulti. You can't particularly take this fight without too many, or without any repercussion. And it's 2 Drakes now for NORD. Herald spawning in under a minute's time, so maybe we get to see Verdant try to take that, but again, I think NORD are so powerful, they can look to contest anything they want on this top side.
I'm sorry, I just love looking at the scoreboard here, and it just feels like Gooby is that guy in the meme with, like, this is fine, while, you know, the whole house is on fire. Like, the ADC's basically not participating in the game so far. Verdant trying to match NORD's map play, making it work top and not so much mid. NORD, you know, doing their usual thing. Like, Hiddo, I guess we'll see you at 20 minutes into the game or something like that, you know? And, you know, making their plays around the map, and it's been working out for them. Right.
So Verdant, here they shouldn't be looking for this. They don't have TP
Seneca goes over the wall, comes back. Hiddo now going to be locked down, flashed away, but still caught by the last breath. But Yone flies back and Omen TPs in to cause havoc. Indecision is able to take down Wendell for the first kill of the game, first kill of the fight. And it has been a very, very bad decision there for Verdant to choose that engagement. 2 dead. Hiddo going to be focused down under the tower with the equalizer. Gooby takes him out, but once again, it's NORD coming out with the fight win.
Yeah, good response kill there for Nilla, but Verdant should never be looking to take that fight. Simply tracking timers. The person you have in bot lane doesn't have teleport. Omen does. Generates a numbers advantage. And as soon as that Swain comes to the fight, Demonic Ascension comes through and relies onto everybody in the area. Means that nobody can escape. As soon as you have them in your sights, it's a very easy takedown. The follow-up from an Ornn, from a Kai'Sa at range as well. Definitely very powerful. And NORD playing this composition once again very well.
And Voxley and the gang need to take notes. Do not attempt to fight NORD in that midsection. That is their comfort zone. That is the area that they have carved out and said, this is mine. Whoa. What? Go on. What are you? Are you okay?
Oh, hello? Are we back? Are we back?
Wait, you were never gone.
We never left.
You never...
You've been here.
That was very, very strange. I had some...
We just... I was like, whoa. Well, what's happening on the screen? Like, I was legit thinking I was blind. Like, am I missing something?
Middlecourt was just enthused by the fact that Wendell had a closer track to mid lane than Seneca for once.
There was something very, very strange going on with the bots that gives me insight. But I think we're back.
But Wendell just exists, like, he's just, like, standing mid now, right? And Seneca's taking control of both sides of the river while he's doing that. But he's like, alright, if Seneca's gonna be here, I'm just gonna stay right here, alright? If this is such a problem, I'm just gonna stand right here, okay, guys? Now Seneca's not a problem.
I think that for the most part as well, it may well just be too little too late. Omon's already effectively Thanos at this stage. I think that Gooby's going to have a real tough time on his shoulders. I think he's going to have to be the one to stand at range the way that you play versus a Swain. You just try and outrange his ulti. Again, Zeri with lethal tempo, that is possible. It's very difficult because if you get caught trying to weave in those Qs between between the CC, can be tricky, and if you get caught then you end up just essentially dying. It's all on Gooby here. 1-0-0 on the Zeri, ahead in farm, able to snipe a kill out on Hiddo in the last fight. Had a decent enough split, not necessarily the highlight of Verdant, but has been known to carry the occasional game.
I feel like when people say, as an aside, that someone is like Thanos now, it's similar to when people used to say that you're like the Spartans at Thermopylae, right? Because you forget that Thanos lost.
Is it?
And I very much don't think Omen is going to lose.
Well, I mean, like, Swain has that whole, like, demon claw hand thing. So I guess that's kind of like
he's
the
not
Infinity
going
Gauntlet
to
as well.
lose. So I'm not going to compare him to Thanos, who lost, right? He got beheaded in one timeline, and then he just got obliterated in another.
Spoilers!
Like,
Wow.
Spoilers!
Spoilers for like a
I
5-year-old
really
movie,
care
dude.
about Marvel Phase 9 or wherever we're at with that.
True. Yes.
But
I fell asleep
honestly,
on Secret Invasion.
something that you maybe wouldn't see in a modern superhero film is interesting writing, and we've had some pretty interesting
Jesus.
script writing in this
True.
series because M. Night
How can we
Shyamalan
just drop
style
something
stuff.
so based?
This is incredible. But genuinely, guys, and Rudu, I know that you predicted that the 3-0 coming through from NORD. Did you anticipate that they were going to be coming in to this series playing like this?
So the reason I anticipate, or the reason I predicted 3-0 was because they would play like this.
True.
Was in the situation where they come in, got punched Verdant early on, never really give Verdant that chance to sit to scale. I actually think that, you know, I got to work with Hitbrain both days last week. He was actually really on the ball with the notion about how Verdant really slow, NORD really fast, and those two things combined with the state of the meta as well, Verdant not really being able to play to that same, just the same level, honestly, and NORD have been able to showcase that they are on that level.
Yeah, I'm gonna be... Oh, okay, yeah, this is just annihilation on the replay here. But I'm gonna be real, like, I watched the VODs for this today, right, to prep for the series. So by the time I did the predictions, I hadn't actually watched the VODs on it, but the predictions are over, right? It's either Witt or Middlecott. Like, but watching those, it was very obvious that if you have a team, okay, I don't want to sound completely nerdy, right? And I am a pretty big nerd.
Do it,
right?
do it.
But if you go all the way back,
moment.
if you go all the way back to, I believe it was 2019, the way that the league was defined was that you had 3-man midsection teams, 2-man midsection teams, and 0-man midsection teams, and you could know who's going to beat who by which team was which. That hierarchy was very, very simple. G2 Fnatic were 3-man midsection teams, right? Schalke were a 2-man midsection team, right? Splice were a 0-man midsection team. They just kind of played out lanes and existed for ages. So you could know who was going to win the playoff matchups by this. You had the same thing going on here. You have a 3-man midsection team from NORD versus 0-man from Verdant. Verdant just played out their lanes over and over again. They're trying to make map plays now, but I'm not even sure. There doesn't seem to be a consistent system by it. It just seems to be by feel about whether they can do it now in the moment rather than a systemic set of plays to get control of the map. If you can make those numbers happen in midsection early, you will control the rest of the map anyway. You're going to be behind on side lane plays if you don't have control of this area. And this feels like a repeat of that 2019 cycle. And so you could very easily say, NORD should just win, right? Unless they lose all lanes level 1, 2, 3 and don't get those timings off, they should just win. And they weren't losing these lanes level 1, 2, 3.
I will just say as well, to add some clarity to the pauses, we've had several different pauses so far this game. We've had a couple of lag issues from Verdant, we've had a couple of peripherals issues from NORD, so everybody just having a little bit of a tricky time in Middlecott as well, not alone in his problems with the box that gives him internet. So we're doing our stuff here on the NLC, and with NORD now very much ahead, they're going for a dive.
Yeah, under the top lane, Tower, 3 men to the party. Seneca, Indecision, and Omen once more. It's taken a little bit of time for Nella to die, but he will eventually to the Rakan. TP comes through from Niter, has the ult available. Omen, low on HP and out of an ult if they want to commit for this. Flash forward for the engage, shut down for the Verdant mid laner, something at least.
Yep, I mean, you need this Yone to be ahead. If Yone can just go on side lanes at this point in the game, and we are about to be approaching that Baron spawn late game scenario, if Yone can be on side lanes with some sort of tempo, and Katos is too far behind to be able to match him, Nocturne can't just immediately one-shot him going in and sustain through that way, then, you know, that's your win con. Like, that's how you get back into this game. You just let this guy play out side lanes, you get advantages on the map that way, and those advantages give you the angles that you need to win those fights.
Chemtech Drake going to be versted down very swiftly by Verdant, and NORD maybe a little bit too late to contest this. Indecision, Seneca waiting in the wings, but Omen doesn't have ult if they want to go for this. Oh, a catch there! Isolated! They've been able to catch out Wendell on the side. Take him down in trade for the Drake. Verdant going to be happy to only lose one.
You're right, that's a win for Verdant. Oh, this might not be.
Yeah, Nilla caught on the side by the paranoia. And NORD coming to get him. Gooby's going to respond with a lightning crash. Dash, try and deal some damage back. Actually, been able to persist for a fair while as Taxu's also roaming over. But here comes Hido. Killer instinct, but Auto's a minion. Oh, Gooby was very, very close to going down. NORD with the pressure should be able to take the tower.
Either way, there was a dash out from Gooby the second that Hido dashed in himself, so I don't think there would have been a timing there for Hido to take it. Nevertheless, Gooby playing with fire and honestly doing a large amount of damage to the 3-man stack there of NORD. Are they going to dive Taxa? Possible. I mean, Hido's got lethal tempo.
There's no way. The rest of the map is being won by them very hard as well. Swain was able to get that push in on mid. Catchcoast was, sorry, not Catchcoast, Niter was only able to acquire one wave on mid, no pressure there whatsoever. Went to try to get some pressure on top lane, way too behind. And because he was so far behind on that crash on top side, he's not able to join River to try to defend Wendell getting any kind of vision here. They have a little bit of vision, but nothing really effective there. They don't know that they can move it in there at all in the first place. Rumble's pushing out bot but doesn't have teleport, and NORD absolutely know that. NORD have their non-TP lane on top side. Honestly, you can just sacrifice this tier 1 tower and play super aggressively for this Baron with full advantage. NORD in control.
Absolutely, as Niter is burning the ult
now.
defensively. Catchco's going to pull out the Call of the Forge God. It's another easy kill for Nords. They've just been so much better at setting up these plays and executing on them across both of these games.
I mean,
Yeah,
Indecision's Nocturne, it's going a little bit crazy, honestly. I was a little bit scared about the pinch jungle pool coming into this draft. You mentioned to me before when we were coming in middle court, you're like, you know what, Indecision's got some pocket picks. I wouldn't be too scared. I doubted you, but you've proven, and Indecision has as well, more than that you are right. Really good performance, 209 on this Nocturne now, and starting up this Baron with Niter dead. I mean, one of the big threats is out of the game.
Yeah, and Nilla is bot lane without TP, so Nord's gonna back away. With Verdant, I believe, spotting it out there.
Niter's death, and during that play, Omen was hard pushing out bot lane. Omen himself didn't have TP, but he was ahead on that push versus the Rumble. So with a numbers advantage topside, Rumble couldn't do anything anymore, and then Rumble eventually has to respond on bot lane. And when he does that response, immediate grouping, you have a really, really good Baron contest here, to be honest. You have good turn with your composition. I mean, it's obvious how well Nord's composition can turn. But with Kaiser and Nocturne, you actually do that thing very, very fast if you group. So you're going to see a lot of these plays happen for the rest of the game. They can honestly just T1 it. Like, let's be real. They can just T1 it. They can just start Baron, not even bother with these pressure points at this time. The enemy's not going to be getting any bounties from it. Just start it over and over again. Keep turning. But so long as your ults are up, you're going to win these fights.
Now, I will say as well, the 5 versus 5, if it goes like even just a little bit close, it's probably going to be quite favourable for Verdant. The front line specifically for Nord have all got bounties on their head. So if you take down Seneca, Indecision, Catchcross, whilst they're not necessarily priority targets, when they've got bounties on their heads, it's a lot of gold to go back if that all gets funneled into Gooby as well. Definitely a world where we can see Verdant try and take these team fights. Zeri might not be the be-all and end-all of late-game hyper-tank, hyper-carry type situation she was in previous patches, but still does a lot of damage if left unchecked at these items.
And she's going to have to, right? Because Nilla and Knight are both currently 1 and 4 chasing the second items in their inventory and kind of being outmatched, not pound for pound necessarily by their lane opponents in Nords, but when it comes to this fight, there's just so much more effectiveness that Nord can get out of their composition, and now that we're sort of post 23, 24 minutes, the objectives become even more impactful if you're able to take them. This next Drake would be Soul Point if Nord can grab it. Gooby going to be able to skate out of there, but Baron also becoming a consideration that Verdant are going to have to be aware of.
It's a massive whiff from Catchcross. Why are you using that before the Drake spawns in 10 seconds time? I understand trying to pick off the Zeri, but she has E, she has Flash, she has Ghost. If Nord now lose this fight because they don't have Call of the Forge God, that seems like a huge blunder to me.
Are we starting up the Drake here? Indecision Seneca. Waiting in the wings. Paranoia is going to go down, and Verdant, they're not entirely sure where they should be focusing. Initial pick going through onto Wendell, and the Nautilus dying at the start of the fight once again. Catchcross in the stopwatch, buying time on the front line. Verdant on the run. Gooby kiting for his life, and with the burst fires, he might just be able to do it. Catchcross knocks him into disguise, and that's the go button for Nord. One overstep, and they will punish, but Verdant still persisting. Gooby still alive, and Omen tanking in the front line is going to be able to survive him and Hido in a 2v3 situation, but very beneficial in terms of the health bars. Niter goes in for a quick trade, and it's straight back away. Verdant, they find a winning fight.
That was the best situation possible for Verdant. You got everybody on towards the catwalk there, which has always been known as a very good Rumble ultimate spot, and the Rumble was able to prevent them from capitalizing on their initial turn. And yet with that, you could see how difficult a time Gooby has against this composition. Ooh. If Kaiser can get on you, you just get burned down like the dog that you are, now that you can no longer be a massively beefy tank with all of those effective shield and health items that you had on previous iterations of Zeri. So even though they had that, even though they ended up 4v2 at a point, they couldn't fully capitalize on it, and that was the best case scenario for Verdant, because Nord They trigger pulled, and they should be able to trigger pull off of a neutral objective, but they were unfortunately trigger pulling on a spot that they were very vulnerable to Verdant's big win con in Nyla.
Or not would have been great.
I didn't want to say it, Middlecop, but
Or not would have been.
you might be right.
Pretty damn good there. Well, Catchcross has it now. He's currently in the bottom lane without TP, so if this pressure around the Baron turns into anything more concrete, he will not be able to join his team, but Niter will neither, so can't imagine that either team is going to make too much of an aggressive move towards that objective yet.
And I want to take a quick look at those items as well. Gooby, exceptionally fed on this Zeri. Gold lead dead even between these two teams, but with the Zeri 202 was able to have a nice little team fight there. Niter got those shutdowns on the frontliners that we'd mentioned, that we'd highlighted NORD. Having a couple of champions that need to be a little bit more careful with their life. Unfortunately, ended up getting picked off, so Verdant got a good cash injection from that fight, despite the fact that they lost the Drake. This fight in 3-4 minutes time, when that next soul or when the soul for NORD even spawns, you can expect to see Verdant very happy to take a fight around it.
You can talk about Gooby being fed, but look at the other side, his opposite number in Hido. Still, pound for pound, just as strong as the Zeri in terms of itemization, even if he is a level down. So, really does become about both of these guys in that next team fight, if they're able to survive, if they're able to deal out the DPS. Baron has been on the table for a little while, and NORD have the majority of the vision control around it for now.
They do indeed, and the same conditions still apply as they did towards the Drake and towards the previous Baron plays. They have the turn, they have the ability to burn this down as fast as humanly possible, and they have full control of the map. Verdant, they're looking at a completely black river going in towards that Baron now. They're scared to go into it. They need to try to get little incremental bits of control back, like this little bit pocket here that Wendell, Nyla, Taxer are sitting on. But NORD, they have the knowledge that those guys are there. They're not going to let them get it.
Still waiting. If you are able to find a pick on someone who isn't on, it could be disastrous. Seneca on the flank. Here comes the call of the Forge God. 3-man knock-up into the wombo combo, but the equalizer is immaculate from Nille. Omen tacking on the front line with the swing, goes into the Zhonya's, and Gooby is still dishing out damage. The Zeri has not been accounted for in the game plan, but the knockup comes through, and Hido takes her down, dashes into the killer instinct to stay alive, and Omen still survives. Nille shall not in the fight as a teleport comes down from Niter. The Olders dropped off Omen, and despite a 2-level difference between these mid laners, should be easy pickings for Niter. Verdant will not go quietly into the night.
No, the engage may well be on to 3 members, but none of them were important. Gooby is the only person that needs to be targeted on this Verdant roster, and NORD need to begin to recognize that. Zeri will be able to rip through them. 4 items on the Zeri. Got the Navori Quick Blades as well, so dishes out immense amounts of damage, can dash around like a fiend, and Verdant, they've got a win condition. And now, with all of that fighting that Gooby's been able to perform on, Knight has quietly been able to start stacking, start scaling as well. He's going to go back to base, finish up another item for himself. 3 items on the Yone, also terrifying.
But this game should be simple for NORD. They just need to bait these guys into these chokeholds, and they need to fight them there. But instead, they're trying to open in these lanes on Catwalk, in these areas where Verdant have a lot of room to move, a lot of room to breathe, and are able to get their win cons out much easier. Yubi shouldn't be able to function if you get him into an enclosed environment where you can guarantee that the Kaiser's going to get on top, that the Nocturne's going to get on top. Omon needs to be able to get as many people in his area as humanly possible, but they're just not finding it.
Flash is available for Omon at this next fight. Drake spawning in 30 seconds time. The be-all and end-all soul here. Hextech Drake, very, very powerful for these skirmish compositions, for your team fighting. So eyes on NORD. See if they can find this Zeri, pick her out of the lineup, make sure that that target has been selected. Your eyes are on Verdant. Are they able to protect the Zeri? Can Gooby do anything to prevent the dive that NORD have got given?
Catchcross is going to be able to teleport back into this fight as another team who've controlled the mid lane, and so can move down into River first. This Drake doesn't mean much for them, but it is Soul for Nord if they can take it away. And in these fights, they are going a little bit longer. An Ocean Soul, or a Hextech Soul rather, be very much appreciated. Indecision has the ult, as it does Catchcross. Gooby goes over the wall, is still going to get hit with the knockup, but is out of vision. The Equalizer comes down, it's going to split the fight a little bit, and the Zeri is still able to free fire. Nord have not been able to activate on their win condition, but they still take out Nita. The Yone is off the board, but
Stolen
still
soul
comes through. Taxa gets the soul away from Nord, but it doesn't seem to matter. Gooby on minuscule amounts of HP, kiting away in the backline, still surviving, still thriving, but Nord are here with four members. Taxa making a play here onto Seneca. Catchcross going to dash forward. The Q goes wide, but it doesn't matter. Catchcross takes down Zeri finally at the end of that play, but crucially, Verdant deny the soul.
A much better fight situation there for Nord, right? But they do lose that soul point. That triple hex into soul hex would have been insane for them, but they are denied that. Luckily, though, they do now get the feel for the fight situation they want. Yes, the Equalizer came out, but it wasn't able to get them all because they were opened up in River and they had room to go around it. But just the very presence of Omon prevented the rest of the team getting around into the choke, splitting them up and making the fight so much easier for Nord. If they just keep these fights in River into chokehold, then they're going to win them really hard instead of going into the chokehold as in the first fight against Rumble that was close, or just opening up in lane for whatever impatient reason. They don't need to be impatient. They're not going to get super hard outscaled. They're always going to have really good tools to deal with Gooby for most of the game. They just need to play fights like that, and preferably get the Drake. The stretch goal.
There have been a couple of occasions through the NLC's long tenure where Taxa may have been known to steal away an objective or two. So, no surprises that we're seeing Taxa consistently, and at least in this game, stepping up to keep his team at least at relative parity with regard to those neutral objectives. Now, of course, the beauty of the Hextech Drake and the rift that it provides was that it meant Nord were able to go back to base, get back out onto the map and secure themselves that Baron. And they've used 1 minute of that timer already, but they've got themselves in a decent enough state on those lanes. Need to make sure that they are pushing out appropriately. But Verdant playing in a nice pocket of vision. You can see that both of the bot lane and the mid lane had to play a little bit respectfully there. They didn't quite know where Verdant was setting up.
And I think an issue that both teams are kind of experiencing is that map hasn't really been extended too much. All these inner towers still remain standing for both these teams, so there's a very narrow field that you can stand in to set up plays on your opponent. So Seneca hasn't really been able to get these massive flank angles off onto the backline of Verdant, and that's meant that they've been able to keep going, to survive, to go 33 minutes against a team that completely smacked them in game one. Hold on, we might be having a change of plan here. Nita engaged on in the mid lane. Hido, killer instincts, but not in range of the Yone. It may not matter in the end, Bo, as the Yone will eventually drop down, and that's going to set up a half-decent fight here for Nord, but they get split and they get isolated and they get taken down. Catchcross and Omen going to be falling off the board. Double for Gooby.
Nothing to claim for Verdant off the back of this, but it does stop that Baron push dead in its tracks. Yes, a tier 2 mid lane falls. They're going to be more than happy to give that up in favour of making sure that nothing else goes down on this Baron timer. Gooby gets to go back to base, might be able to finish Guardian Angel off the back of that instead. Instead just says, Nanas to safety, I need to do as much damage as possible. BT for me, thank you very much. And full items now for this Zeri. Again, have to remember, this is the one champion that Nord particularly, have to focus, make sure that they are in a good spot to take down. It just gets harder and harder every item that gets finished.
But they have so many disadvantages playing this through into lane. With that Baron, you can create more pressure for your opponents after going towards jungle. You can play it slow, right? You can play for tower and no more than that, and make picks opportunistically as the enemy has to rotate to try to get you, spread themselves thin. Maybe you get one pick or two off there, but just a straight up 5-on-5 lane fight, you'd think they'd know by now, right? There are rats who are able to train to learn this, and we don't have to shock them quite so much.
You've told them several times at least in this game, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that would imply, quite disastrously, that they're not listening to the stream whilst they're playing. So,
I mean,
don't know how I feel about that, but it felt like there
that's a
have
loss for
been
them, honestly.
so many of these fights, right, where Gooby has just been able to free hit, and even in this one, he gets taken relatively low towards the end, but finding access onto this area has been a continual problem for NORD.
Yeah, it has. I mean, their big tools to do that are the Nocturne, are the Seneca 5 trillion dashes, and definitely the Kaiser are, but all of that in this fight was used on Niter, which does give Gooby a lot of leeway, but as he finds out after, that mobility on the Rakan remains. Kaiser has her own other forms of mobility, and if you get rid of big threats like the Niter, you can still kind of run her down a bit. But if it's a straight 5-on-5, that's not going to happen. She's going to be free hitting you at the same time as you're going on towards Niter, and that's when you're at your most vulnerable.
And this presents a great inflection point potentially for the series for us, because if NORD are able to keep a hold of this advantage, close out this game, then they've got match point in this series. They have got 3 opportunities to send themselves to EMEA Masters, to send themselves to the final versus Natives. But if Verdant can get that wing, that's the start of that comeback. That's us going, no, that game 1, it was an incident. We won't talk about it anymore, and potentially helps them build on that confidence and make this a much more competitive series from their side. So really, I think quite often you end up with high-pressure games in 3, 4 of a series, but here in Game 2, this is a big moment.
A lot of stakes. That is probably an understatement, honestly. Update for you all on the pause. It looks like Niter having some connection issues, so just making sure that obviously Verdant get that mid laner reconnected, hopefully within enough time for their pause timer to be unallocated. We obviously get to sort of sit here, revel in the fact that this game has been a lot closer than game number 1, a bit more of what I think the broadcast team would have been hoping for, not just NORD completely stomping their way through 3 games, home before dinner type situation. But it's a good little showcasing here from both teams.
We're back. Nice. Okay. No awkwardness here then.
It's never awkward.
It's never hard. I love filling in pauses. It's the most fun.
The NLC podcast has become a bit of I think a new level of meme this split.
Yeah, we should start an actual podcast.
Yeah, I've been wondering why we haven't had one. I thought that off the tier list we were going to end up just having a podcast. But clearly, I mean, producers, get on it.
We've lacked some critical thinking, I think. Yeah. That's what's...
Well, next split. It's in the oven. It's getting cooked. It's going to happen next split. 40 seconds. We have got a Drake spawning. And this will be a very nice soul if NORD can get it. But Verdant showed the ability to fight around the Drake last time, and they're going to put up even more resistance, I think, around this one.
Should hope so. I mean, again,
they're first.
To rehash the points for them, they've got full item Zeri, who's obviously going to be the subject of NORD's ire, you'd like to think anyway. And then your eyes have to be on Knight to see if you can find some of those big clutch re-engages, counter-engages to thwart NORD's efforts.
Move into the river. Seneca trying to engineer a flank from the side. He's going to be spotted on that control board. They are... But...
No!
Come on, guys!
Why?
Oh, right.
Guys, they're about to fight. We need to make sure that everything's okay. If there are peripheral issues going into a fight...
That's great. That's cool.
The Seneca is on the flank there. There's absolutely no choice. NORD have to fight this, and they have to fight it now. And at the exact point, we get the pause, which is a bit of a blower. But yeah, like they have to take this. This is actual soul, because the last soul point got stolen. And they know if they leave Taxa alive, they're not going to get this one either. They have to get on top of them. They have to they have to deny them the soul itself. They have to get on soul point themselves, but they're doing it at disadvantage. This is not a good situation for them, right? Going straight on top of them like this, that's the scenario where if you go on towards Niter, Gooby hits you, and if you go on towards Gooby, Niter hits you. You don't want to be in those situations either times. This looks like a very good situation if you're a Verdant fan. So if you're one of the managers.
Frumi is... Well, I don't know how Frumi's feeling right now. I imagine quite tense. Very, very nervous.
Yes.
So I think
this team's 0-1 down on the series that sent
that's
into EMEA.
The worst pause timing.
I think nervous is kind of going to be the mood in all the watch parties, in all the discords for the fans of both these teams right now. But yeah,
I mean,
NORD have been trying to go right through the front door against Verdant in the last few fights, and it hasn't been working. Once again, I think Seneca spotted out on vision as he's trying to come over this wall into this Drake fight, so we'll have to see if it's a case of NORD pulling the trigger a little bit too early and maybe not having the engage set up in the way that they necessarily want to, and Verdant able to take advantage of that.
I'm going to be curious. I really want to keep my eyes on Gooby. I know we've highlighted him a lot, but when you're fighting around these really important objectives, and actually the important thing for me is the large pieces of terrain, specifically like Drake walls, the big knuckle around bot lane as well. There's a situation that you can find yourself in where you dash just what you think is a little bit to the side, where you end up yeeting yourself over a wall and you're effectively pop-ulting yourself out of a fight. So it's a small thing, but Gooby, just cognizant of the fact that you can't be being next to walls that are going to take you too far away from a fight, because even if Nocturne jumps in and you get away from the fear, the Nocturne's job is already done, because if you're not a part of that big fight, cool, I don't care if you're dead or not, you've just ulted a need away, you're now also useless, so...
Yeah, it's kind of highlights how difficult it is for him to play out this composition as well, because on the other side you do have that Ornn. If you're going to be standing next to the walls like Zoe does want to be positioning, the Ornn's going to absolutely love you for that, right? So there's a lot of ways.
Okay, we've got to get to this quickly, equalize it down, and Verdant gets the Drake
so
Paranoia thrown down. Seneca still flashing over the wall, going for a pick hit onto Wendell, diving on the Nautilus. This isn't the priority target you need to be taking. NORD is going to be falling down, but Gooby is untouched. Here comes Omen, getting it into the backline, getting access onto the Zeri, dashes back over the wall to escape. Nile going over the wall himself, and Nords get one kill. They're looking for even more, but here comes Niter. Doesn't have the ult. Healer is going to kill her instinct onto Nile in the backline, but he doesn't kill the Rumble. He gets the Yone instead, but there goes the other solo laner, and NORD are going to find another fight. The catch on to Zeri takes her down, and NORD are denied the soul once again, but they find a massive fight against Verdant.
Wait, they won?
They won the fight, but I don't think they're going to be able to get too much more. Their wave's not really in the best spot. Death time is...
Are the observers correct? Wait, what's going on? Okay, sorry. Just on my screen, it says that Verdant have 3 Drakes for NORD 3 Drake.
That's correct.
That is absolutely what has happened, veteran.
Okay, I'm so
and at
confused.
the moment... NORD are marching down the one lane. They've taken down the inhib, and those death timers, 10 seconds until they're up. Verdant going for the engage super early on. Stopwatch to buy a little bit of time, but Taxa is already off the board. Shaw's going to get his escape interrupted a little bit there by Wendell, but
I need a replay of that. I need a replay of that Drake. Right now, the game is in such a good state for NORD, but I need a replay of that Drake.
What's confusing you? Where did we... What was the source? I'm confused also now.
So the initial engage that was done on towards the Nautilus, I thought they burned so many cooldowns that there's no way that they could move all the way through them. I don't think Omen was strong enough just to do that, and I really need to see the decisions that were done by Verdant to give that to them, because Verdant, they could just move away. They could absolutely just move away from that. I think once you've burned the Rumble ult, that should be the play, right? You do the Rumble ult, you get the Drake, you move away. You should be able to make it out of that fight fairly decently. If they want to go into you, Nocturne and Kai'Sa should have to stretch themselves super thin for it. But it felt like they committed a bit too hard towards saving the Nautilus, and in doing so, just kind of gifted themselves over. The angle, obviously, at which you approach bot side there, if you're not going via Tribush, becomes very awkward.
Engage onto Omen. Initial burst down onto... the Swain. NORD are going to respond by coming over the window. Is going to be taken out of the picture. But Verdant are just so much stronger in their own base. NORD fumble the engage. Heater has gone over the wall, and he's dishing out so much damage. Somehow, NORD find the fight in the base of Verdant. Nile.
They've got numbers.
Now they're going to win.
The last one's left alive. Baron in Power Minions going to assist
it's doable.
in the push. First next tower, going to be focused down. Nile is overheated, cannot cast any more spells. The Cathian Rain burning onto him as Nitra is going to go for a short trade, goes straight back out, but not Able to take down any members of NORD. Still 10
Nilla
seconds
ult.
until Wendell is on the board. It's got to be Nita. It's got to be Nilla. It's got to be now. Equalizer is going to be able to take out the minions, and NORD think better of going for the push. Edo.
Nilla, Nita, they were just handshaking there, right? Nita's like, I'll hold them off or you get your HP back. And then Nala comes back with ultimate. It's like, I'll hold them off or you get your HP back. They keep trading back like that to try to make sure NORD don't end the game here and go 2-0 up in the series. Massive underdogs. They just barely made it in. There was a time where we were saying we thought Fourth Wall could even be making it in over NORD. NORD repeating the story that Verdant passed down last split, right? And Verdant, they know how that story ends. And this must be a really nerve-wracking situation for them to be in. Oh.
But look at who's getting it done. Yes, Indecision and Omen continuing their strong playoff form, but it's Hido. 700 gold bounty on his back, 10, 2, and 11, fully stacked on the Kai'Sa. He's been getting pretty greedy, pretty aggressive in these last couple fights. That's been working out well. Once again, Verdant are going to be starting off the engagement. Nita diving into the backline and dying before the autos of Hido. Wendell going to be the next target. Kubi still untouched in this fight, trying to do all that he can with the burst fires. But NORD will just cut through everybody else. Hido with a triple. Hido with a quadra. Hido with a goddamn pentakill to win game 2. Grab match point for NORD.
And the rookie for NORD steps up once again. A pentakill to end game 2, sends them to match point, and makes this series on the verge of repeating history.
Yeah, I mean,
My words.
the story of this game is really simple, alright? Well, other than that time where NORD lost their minds and started trying to contest them in lanes because they got really impatient, all NORD have to be is a little bit more patient. That's a really simple thing that you can definitely, as a coach, say. We've got the right game plan, we've got them on the ropes, just have to be a little bit more patient, just fight them at Baron, we're all good, right? But for Verdant, right, they can't contest these guys in midsection. They just can't do it. Not going to be able to ban out the champions they can do it with. This Rakan can't go through to Seneca again. It just cannot go through towards Seneca again. That needs to be removed, number 1. And then number 2, 1 gank is not enough. 2 ganks is not enough, alright? These guys are ganking mid like 6 times. You need to do that to Nyla, right? Nyla needs to get ahead. You need to put him on a carry. You need to play that kind of play style that everyone thought that you were going to be playing early on. We're not doing this around bot lane anymore. You can't contest them around mid lane. You have 1 option left. But luckily, you have that option with a player who plays the stat check carry, split push champs. Put him on one of those. Gank this guy 7 times. And see how the game goes then. Do it. You have nothing to lose here except the whole goddamn series. So you need to change it up fast. It's not working as it is now. Change it.
Who would have thought coming into this NORD 1
That
game away from taking out Verdant in dominant fashion. And yeah, Rudid's smiling and the rest of NORD is smiling as well because the performances that we're seeing from this team are so damn impressive. We are going to be jumping to a short break now, but you do not want to go anywhere. We are on the verge. One of the biggest upsets that we've seen for a while in the NLC. We'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to the NLC, where we are sat 2-0 in favour of NORD going into Game 3. Well, I'm stood up now, because this has all got a heck of a lot more exciting, veteran.
Alright,
One game win away from EMEA Masters, from the final. Excellent, excellent. Your torso, veteran. I've always thought that was your most attractive attribute, but
well, you wouldn't be wrong.
for Verdant, it's looked rough, more than anything, veteran, and I guess a lot of us are wondering how they reverse sweep their way back into this series, how they prevent themselves from falling to a team that very few of us gave a chance coming into this matchup.
Okay, one word, all right, Nyla, right? That is the way that they managed to make it in lovely kitchen over there that was previously disguised, but yeah. Nyla is the way that they get back into this game, right? They need to get him on a carry now, not Rumble, all right? That is high damage, but not the same thing as a carry. Get him on his Jax, get him on a Camille, get him on a Fiora, get him on something where he's going to create pressure points around the map, because they have not had pressure points the whole game at all. This game, they tried to get Niter to get him some pressure points, to try to give them tempo back on the map, but it was not happening. When they put this guy on Renekton, nothing was happening there. You saw one gank top and then nothing else. Guys were point and click CC, but there was no burst anywhere on the team. If you're going to play compositions like this, you need to be leading NORD around the map. You can't let NORD group up. You can't let NORD get their skirmishes. You can't let NORD play their game, because if they do, it's over, right? You're going to lose the way that you've lost all of these other games. You can't pray that NORD are just going to constantly take fights in lane where they're not at a huge advantage, right? Because even then, those fights were close because of the advantages NORD had gotten before that point.
So Rue, like, taking that point sort of in your stride, do you feel like that's something that NORD are going to have recognised about that previous game? Because it was significantly closer than the game one.
Yeah, I sure hope so. It will have been hopefully a little bit of a reality check for NORD that, and I don't think they'd have came into the series expecting this, that they would just come in and like utterly 3-0 stomp all the games like they did in game number one. So it's nice that they've had a little bit of a difficult game to find a matchup now into game number 3 where they can go in, have got a real gauge for what Verdant can put down, make sure that they're ready going into this final game to give them what could very easily be a clean sweep.
Yeah, and we do have a little bit of a pause before we are going to be able to get into.
I'm not standing up for that.
Yeah, so people without standing may want to return to their seats, but I guess that makes the draft a heck of a lot more interesting. Verdant have selected red side for the first time in this series, and we saw last game that focusing out the jungle pool against Indecision didn't really seem to work. Omen has shown a little bit more of this depth with the Swain and improved performances on the Ahri as well. We know how scary here Azir is too. Draft, it feels like Rue is starting to become a question that is very difficult for Verdant to answer effectively.
I actually wonder, given Edo's performance in that game, whether they drop the Xayah ban. In the logic of, we can give Edo any AD carry and he's going to be scary. It's not a AD carry decision. It's a player style that we need to allow. We need to put more resources into shutting him down, or to giving Nilla something that can shut down an AD carry better.
I'm gonna throw something out there. Maybe if this guy has to early pick Kai'Sa, we pick something that's good into Kai'Sa instead of something that Kai'Sa is good into. I mean, the Swain was there, right? Like, if you're gonna have AD mid, just go Swain on bot lane. Kai'Sa literally can never play the game of League of Legends Clash of Fates that's available everywhere in full. If you go for something like the Draven, you're now going to have to play heavy towards bot side, and I don't really want you to do that. So I'd prefer it to be something like that. There are plenty of champions you can shut him down on. I think giving him Zydo's suicide. This game was close. This would not have been close if he was on Xayah. You're never getting on top of him. Whereas here, the ranges Kai'Sa has to play into are already very, very dangerous ranges. So I'm not sure that I'm down for that suggestion. I think this guy is a different tier when he gets on that Xayah champion, and I'd rather not play against
I was working
that.
for you here, Veteran. I'm trying to give you the scores back on the predictions.
I mean, if you want to, like, ban Kai'Sa, why not just go for the Ezreal, right? Like, if the Kai'Sa's removed and the Xayah's removed and you go for the Ezreal, I don't think this guy plays really anything that's that good in towards it. Ezreal doing perfect in the game one if you're going to give them Xayah at all, if they're going to go that route. And Gooby's Ezreal, that used to be his best champion. That used to be his cream of the crop champion. You gave Niter, one of the champions used to be insane on, maybe go for a similar thing of Gooby. Going full comfort in a match point game, that's worked out so well for teams before.
Yeah.
You need your players to be able to tackle against the onslaught that this series is having on their mindset. Just go for the comfort. I want to see that Gooby Ezreal again.
And do you know what that does? If we're getting Gooby on Ezreal or Swain or something that can weak side a little bit, well,
We're cooking.
I
We're
feel
cooking.
like
Hold
that
on.
means that maybe
Oh!
we could put a few more resources
Where?
into Nilla in the top lane, perhaps.
Hey! We found the Verdant win condition. Well done,
Now
everybody.
they're gonna go mid and die.
I really hope not. And it feels, and I don't want us to get caught up on this point, but Nilla is so good in these carry champions, and there is a reason that in this exact same matchup in spring, it was Verdant that were able to come out with the win when they were the unfavored squad coming through. They've kept Nilla, they've kept Taxa coming into summer, and on paper they've built this stronger roster that has all these multifaceted ways of playing. I want to see them, because we may not have another opportunity to.
And not coping the same way that those like Bo guys were coping about we need to put Bo on carries, because we've seen Nilla on carries this split, similar to how we saw Bo on carries, but unlike with Bo, Nilla worked on those carries and was actually able to play the game out properly on those carries. So this isn't a completely delusional thing coming out of us. It's a viable option. We've seen it this split. We saw it last split as well, but we've seen it this particular split on this iteration. We know they can pull this off. So pull it off now. Get some weak siding happening on bot lane, right? Honestly, the Zeri game, that was theoretically a game where you could have done it. Ignore that mid section, give it up to NORD, okay, whatever, Niter just don't die, and just overload top, right? K-Corp it. K-Corp just dragged Targamas top every game with what was his name? Adam on like Olaf or whatever, alright? Targamas lived top lane. Alright, I don't think Xmathy knew what a support was like until he joined the LEC, and then he kind of regretted ever having one. So just do something like that.
What I'm hearing is it's Fiora time. And,
True. That would be ace.
I think, and again, this is also not unprecedented, right? Nilla got Fiora banned against him the entirety of spring. Summer has just not been a ban, and to my knowledge, Fiora didn't get any like gut-wrenching nerfs between spring and summer. Champion just fell a little bit out of favor in the way that the meta has evolved into having to need a tank top side. You know, it hasn't favored Verdant so far, and the fact that they've picked up some damage carries but not necessarily, or they've picked up some damage but not necessarily some carries, excuse me, has also not funded them well in this series either. So Fiora time it is.
Maybe the fact that they've opted to go onto red side is going to tease that out, because with these split push champions, you kind of want to make sure that the lane matchup that you're going into is going to be favorable, and the overall team composition that your opponent is playing isn't able to force so much on your guys whilst you're off taking towers, winning the game by yourself. So I think maybe this is something that Verdant are thinking, actually, do you know what? We are down at 0-2. This is our trump card. This is our pocket pick that we could bring out to try and wrest back control of this series and prevent the upset from happening.
I think I'm also interested into how the bans are going to change as well. Obviously, 2 games on blue side for Verdant, 2 games on red. For NORD kept their bans the same between games 1 and 2. Didn't really feel like they needed to change all that much. They actually swapped one of them. I can't remember which one, but either way, the fact that it was Kai'Sa that they dropped from red side. So they've got a lot of decisions to make, because some of those bans were targeted, some of those bans were just, okay, red side jail / blue side, we don't really want to first pick this ourselves. And I'm curious to see what happens to the jungle pool, because Indecision has proven that even off of the quote S tier champions that we have in the NLC meta at the minute, he's still absolutely fine, more than serviceable as a jungler to not just get through the early game, but to be able to find advantages as well for his team. So there's a lot of questions to be asked for who's going to ban what on this third, potentially final game. And really that draft can look, I think it's going to look completely different.
I agree, it won't be the same draft as the last games.
No, but there were a lot of similar champions, right, between games 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I think that this is just going to be a completely just off of this series meta different style of draft.
Well, I mean, we saw like a gameplay reset really from Verdant in game 2. Maybe the draft reset is the last sort of thing that they need to actually completely put game 1 out of their minds and show us the high quality team that we know that they can be, because they came first place in the split for a reason. This is not a bad team of players, but at the moment it feels like they are a team of players rather than a team foremost, and that's where NORD have been finding a little bit more of this edge.
If you're looking at this and you're natives, what are you thinking right now, right? Because you've almost definitely done all of your prep for Verdant up to this point. Ruddy NORD was probably a toss-up where you maybe even thought Ruddy would happen. You're definitely happy right now that you have a little bit more of a break before you have to meet potentially this NORD lineup, because you haven't played against anything like this before. They're not going to tackle you the same way that you've been tackled before, which was generally a targeting of bot lane. They're going to look towards targeting your midsection. Vladdy's going to be there. How do those conversations go as natives, right? Are you going to be like, we're not really going to pay too much attention to mid Vladdy, just live, we're going to play elsewhere? How are you going to do it?
I think for natives, I would love to see them play around mid lane. They've also got this sort of stalwart top laner, and I think that Shikari and Kachkos pair up much more similarly than we see Nilla and Kachkos match up in this series specifically. Shikari has been absolutely, stone cold on the top side.
Literally just the same, man.
It is pretty much exactly the same, but we are back for potentially the final game of this series. Very quick evening for us gentlemen, as NORD 1 win away from finals, 1 win away from EMEA Masters, and Verdant need to get the reverse sweep to make it work. Similar sets of bans that Xayah being removed from Hero, not something that the NORD AD carry is going to be able to rely on.
Maokai and Rel are both up, and the Rel is what NORD have decided are the biggest ones for the trade, and now Verdant, from one long break to potentially another, if they don't pull something out here, they're looking to take the Kai'Sa away from Hiddo. They've already gotten the Rakan down, and this would generally mean for Hiddo a Zeri pick, but that is not going to be best here because you have the Kai'Sa to match it, and you have the Maokai point and click. Let's see what he does. Ashe is the other champion he's brought out, but that has been much more middling than any of his other champions so far.
Definitely subject to variability, the success rate on that Ashe. I do value its early game, we'll say, pressure that you can put out with the extra range versus a Kai'Sa specifically. Later on, obviously, a lot more difficult. Very prone to getting caught out.
Oh, no.
There
It's still available. It's still available. I think we could be saying oh no to either of these picks, because Omen was ridiculous on the Azir in this series versus Ruddy, and Seneca, if Rakan is ever available, he's just going to lock it in. He is ridiculous on this pick.
Yep, the Rel is going towards indecision. That means a lot of aggression coming out of jungle early, and Seneca on that Rakan, I was going to say everywhere, has been mid lane over and over and over again and winning every skirmish no matter what position he's in at the start of that fight. But I do wonder now, is the play not just move Kai'Sa towards mid lane, play a Maokai Kai'Sa matchup into the Rel Azir, and potentially play with that advantage, especially once you hit level 6? That can be a pretty good matchup for the Kai'Sa, and the build path is going to really make it difficult for you to itemize into those two. So that sounds good to me. They are banning the Ashe. I wonder if they'll ban the Zeri, because you do like Kai'Sa into Zeri, even if you put the Zeri, the Kai'Sa into mid. You can put the Kai'Sa into mid, and you can put something bot lane. God, I don't want to say it, but like you can put something bot lane like
something cursed.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at melee tank jungle that wants to dive. I am looking at Rakan. You could, if they go Zeri, I'd be thinking about this insta slamming Vayne as fast as humanly possible. And then the only thing that you'd potentially lack there would be wave clip. You can make up for that on
static shifts.
Or, yeah, with the static shift that you now get on mid lane Kai'Sas. So I do see that potential opportunity. There is a Draven opportunity where you would then be playing around bot lane. You have a lot of options here to completely shut down. And they do think it's not worth, because they might end up in a double AD carry position as well. So they've banned the Malphite. So I do think Verdant are on board with that whole particular ploy. It could just be something like a Draven bot with a Nautilus and Kai'Sa into mid, and you have really good lanes.
Okay. Now, the thing for Verdant is they have to reveal that flex. It's either going to be Kai'Sa mid or bot at the end of this pick, or they're sacrificing top lane R5. Those are the two options here. We would.
For sure, top. Yeah.
You want to see them take blind top? Okay, that's also.
For sure.
That's...
Counter pick bot lane, counter pick mid, and go something top lane. Nilla can be somewhat safe on. Like the Ornn. Like, this is how I would do this draft at that point. You have such
with
a good
Nilla on the
opportunity
team.
to win. Yes, you have such a good opportunity here to just like last time they messed up. Okay, they've messed up the draft every time at the same point, which is when they pick their mid bot lane and they just start counter picking themselves. This time they have these. Okay, if they lock in Draven here, you go Kai'Sa mid and you slam something really long range and towards that Draven. That's what you have to do. Okay, if they manage to mess up this draft,
Gooby Vayne.
I will be no, but okay, but if they lock this in, this is actually a Vayne pick, by the way. This is the biggest Vayne.
Any tank and it's Gooby Vayne.
This is the biggest Vayne pick of all time, dude.
I mean,
my god, man.
Kachkos is a tank guy. He does like to play a lot of tanks. We'll just say the Kennen is still available if he wants to go for that potentially, and he has just locked a Cho'Gath.
Twitch is really good. Twitch is really good.
Okay, whoa, okay.
Twitch is really good here.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of weird picks here. Cho'Gath, I want someone to explain that to me.
Good.
Twitch, I want someone to explain that to me. Okay, Veteran, you seem on board with the Cho'Gath.
Okay, well, I mean, Cho'Gath into Ornn Maokai setups and into, from their perspective, a super low range team, right? With the Kai'Sa, Nautilus, Maokai. Like, this is a very good pick because they have to all go into. They're all in full form of your silence. It's really easy for you to get multiple knockups on towards them here. It's really easy for you to disrupt the Ornn as well in the middle of fights. It's a really nice pick for him, and if he's anticipating a possible Vayne, the silence from that is still going to be useful as well. The reason the Twitch is so good though, okay, anything that counters Ezreal, right, counters Zeri. They both have the exact same things that you need to work around, right? And Twitch here is a very strong Ezreal counter because Twitch can match Ezreal when he hop, skips, jumps away with his range on his R. You can't get away from the Twitch damage, so you just unload on him. Same thing with Zeri. Zeri jumps over that wall, the autos are following her, right? It's over, the poison's following her, the big R autos are following, it's doomed. And into the Azir, right? Same thing. This guy wants to use his terrain to disengage. That doesn't matter. Into the Twitch. The Twitch is still hitting him from 50 million years away. Twitch is a very good pick into both of those. For once, they have good matchup mid, good matchup bot, good team fight overall. If you're not going to play around Nilla, at least now you're playing with good advantage in fights.
And the thing is as well, when you lock in this Twitch on the bot side so frequently, if you're playing this in solo queue or what have you, you just get slammed in lane. Zeri's not a slam in lane style of champion. You've got a good support matchup as well with the Nautilus into the Rakan. The stars really have aligned for Verdant on this bot side to make sure that Gooby can get to that first item, get to a point in the mid game where he can surprise people on a side lane. The thing with Twitch as well is that as you get into that mid game, as you get into that late game, you now have to play with so much value, or not so much value, so much respect on the side lanes. So if you don't see Twitch farming that mid wave, or if Twitch even has prio on a mid wave, every time he's pushed that out, you have to be careful on the sides as well.
For sure. Yeah, and that kind of pressure could make it difficult if your whole thing has been sack Hero and group everyone mid on repeat with Seneca, etc. Well, now if Twitch is off the map and hasn't shown up on bot lane yet, where is he? He could be here. He could be top. He could be in jungle. The paranoia is everywhere. No Nocturne this game. And yet still they've managed to get that passive rolling. The Twitch pick is so good, and you know, there's a really long-range champion here to follow up as well. So if you want to play Twitch to make picks later on side lanes, the Kai'Sa can be right there with him as well, with that semi-global. So really nice composition from Verdant. Well, there's one way to play it, but a really, really good way that NORD don't actually have the tools to get around.
And for Verdant, they're going to be able to, well, they're going to need to use every single ounce of that draft advantage because they are currently down 0-2 against NORD. On the verge of big upset in the NLC. Our first place team from the regular split falling down in a bitterly close best of 5 against natives in the Juggernaut match. Down into the lower bracket. Thought that NORD maybe would be pushovers, but they have emphatically not been. And now they're the ones on the back foot. Verdant, they need to win to keep their finals hopes alive.
And to give some credit to NORD as well here, complete switch up from spring and summer had this all-star roster through spring, didn't make it to EMEA Masters, blew up the roster, and almost, or not just almost, but did rebuild top lane veteran presence in Kachkos. They've taken Indecision and Oman, who have been instrumental in these first 2 games, as players that have battered around the ERLs for a couple of years now, not quite been able to find true success just yet, and then picked up a wholly rookie bot lane in Hido and Seneca. Hido, fresh off of solo queue. This is his first competitive split of League ever, and he got a pentakill in the last game, carrying NORD through games 1 and 2. The rebuild from NORD and the development of this organization's talent line, very, very strong and very impressive as well.
Wendell and Gooby here with a bit of control over this lane in the early stages. Omen getting shoved in the mid lane. This is the power that the Kai'Sa can have. I know there were certain mid laners grabbing solo kills quite early on with this pick in years past in the NLC.
Kai'Sa's the new doesn't count champion, right? Like, Cassante was a doesn't count champion. Pre-durability nerf Gnar was a doesn't count champion. Kai'Sa is the current doesn't count champion. If you have a really sick performance on Kai'Sa, it doesn't count, alright? Like, I'm not, yeah, like, okay. Well, yeah, but it's a Kai'Sa, I don't care, you know?
Doesn't count. Well, I mean, Omen's going to be very glad that Indecision has turned up to mid lane, because he was horribly losing out on that trade. Still has the flash and the teleport, so will be able to return to his lane should he need to, and with the amount of poke that he's already taken, it wouldn't surprise me if that's sooner rather than later.
And this is one of those games where, when you know that this matchup is so difficult, I might have liked to see Oman opt into something like a Hail of Blades just to try and combat that Kai'Sa a little bit earlier, so that those trades aren't as favourable. Obviously, if Oman can survive this early game, going to be more than happy to take Conqueror and start rattling out damage later on. Question is whether he can get through it, and for the time being, the answer has proven to be no, but he's still got that teleport, hasn't died yet, so it's not the worst case scenario for this Azir in the mid lane.
That would be such a sick bot lane name. Like, bot lane accounts. Like, you get one called sooner and one called later.
You're not wrong.
Well, I mean, at the moment, the Zeri and the Rakan doing pretty well for themselves. I think Hino and Seneca probably have got like nice hero names for each other in solo queue, because they have been a very good bot lane. Kind of spent most of it apart though, with Seneca's propensity to roam into the mid lane, so maybe the relationship is potentially on the ropes, but if they keep winning games, I'm sure they're not going to mind at all. Wendell,
that works, right? Like, Seneca is sooner, right? Seneca is sooner, and then Hido is later.
And at the end of the game, Hido gets a pentakill, Seneca just leans back. Ah, yeah, bot is support diff. All me.
No, he'll say, yeah, it was always sooner rather than later.
wait, this is a pun. I've just realised that this is a pun. Oh my word!
You said sooner rather than later, right?
Well, I realised that that's what you. I thought it was like
That's so
sooner.
good.
It's like it sounds like a new champion name or something. It's like Sooner, the guy with, I don't know, hands are on fire and he has to fight people. At the moment, Indecision, Taxa are going to be fighting each other. Kachkos getting the shove in this lane, having a pretty good time in the matchup versus the Ornn.
Wendell moving towards midsection on this one as well, by the way, despite the fact that usually we're used to seeing NORD be out first on towards mid. It is Wendell who's getting first here, so Verdant, they're using that priority bot, they're managing to get these timings that NORD are used to. NORD definitely being thrown off of their game here.
Do you want to quickly highlight that Taxa went back to base, got himself that giant spell a little bit earlier than Indecision. Indecision spent a bit of time warding around that top side. Whee! Nice little dodge. But a little bit more vision given over to the NORD squad. They're going to not see Taxa on that top side, be able to intuit that he's down on that bot side of the map, and you can just see Oman holding up toward that top side of mid lane. Means it's a little more difficult for him to get caught by these Fog of Warhawks from a Maokai Flash W.
Interestingly enough, though, Hido seems to be having a fine time early on in this lane versus the Twitch. Obviously, once he gets level 6, access to the spray and play, it can become a heck of a lot more dangerous for Azeri when Seneca is constantly going for these rounds. But Indecision also making his way over to the bot side. Wendell, a little bit far forward, is going to get thrown into the air, completely whiffs on the hook, flashes away, but is going to be giving over first blood to Hido. That's not what you want to see if you're a Verdant fan.
Great lockdown between the Rakan and the Rel. Honestly, Gooby just fortunate that he wasn't the one who got caught in amongst it. Indecision starts up the dragon, has got double pink wards down, so very real possibility NORD can take this one off the back of a gank as well. They're able to push in that bot wave. Edo not going to greed for a plate. The question is, does he sacrifice a bit of his recall timer here to go and do the Drake with his team? He does, so a little bit selfless here from Edo, but it secures the first Drake, and NORD have been all over these neutral objectives this series. It makes absolute sense.
You definitely wanted to be in an advantage, though, with Twitch Nautilus in the early laning phase of the game. You do have good scaling options here, but you should have an advantage at every single point. You don't want to be giving up this first Infernal. That Infernal is going to pay huge dividends for Verdant later on, were they able to get it. But unfortunately, Wendell, he does get caught in lane. He does get taken down. That's life. And NORD, they're able to get the opening Infernal.
CS leads. Really building there for Hido. Nita has had the lion's share of the pressure in terms of the mid lane, but the game so far kind of hasn't really been about mid lane so much. Yes, we've had a couple of roams coming over, particularly Wendell there missing the hook, trying to get on top of Omen as really enjoys playing a Cho'Gath and getting every single thing he wants to do cancelled. I think this is why you pick the pick. It's a counter into the Ornn because it can be so annoying and win out in this lane.
This is the foreshadowing, I suppose, for when Nilla actually presses R. The expectation is that we're going to see Catch Cost look for those ruptures, look for those silencers to be able to prevent Nilla from R2ing. So we're now looking for those slightly more advanced Ornn mechanics where you call the Forge God and then flash closer to it, so you get like a surprise knock-up essentially. Again, nothing that players won't have seen before, but it's something that can catch them off guard if they're not expecting it.
Wendell gets a hook coming through. Seneca able to battle dance himself away. Could have been dangerous with Nita level 7, has access to the killer instinct, but NORD once again, they take down that Drake, they move the pressure towards the top side of the Rift, looking for an angle potentially towards Herald, but Verdant are here as well and able to match.
Top prio is just always in favour of NORD. So Catch Cost will just have first move on any given timer. And you know, these two AD carries likely to be able to make their way up to the top side at about the same amount of time. Hido can use the E along the dragon wall to get a lot of distance down. Stealth from Gooby, going to be able to get him a bit more movement speed moving up through this top side. So NORD start up that Rift Herald. It's a slight advantage for Hido.
Gooby opening up with a spray and pray, and Hido just dashes straight over the wall. Probably recognise the NORD AD carry could do that. Maybe setting up for a roam, maybe setting up for a dive as Taxon moves over, but Zeri
Love it.
smells out something fishy and backs away from the play, and actually NORD might be able to get something off this.
No, I don't think that they will.
Okay.
They could have done.
They could have done. They didn't. I'm just blasting you apparently for no reason, my bad.
At this point in the game, right, the next big objective is going to be that Drake in 2 minutes' time. You have Azir getting good prio on towards midsection, but the all-in potential is always going to be there from the Kai'Sa. She's on level 8, she's about to be on level 9, she's about to hit a really huge spike coming back into lane with Static Shiv. If any play is allowed to be made in the midsection, it's going to go in Verdant's favour. Normally we talk about how Verdant, they don't necessarily have the burst like in game 1 to do something in these skirmishes, but now they are the team with all of the burst. Didn't auto to interrupt? Okay, interesting. Didn't auto to interrupt there, but the TP is going to be burned regardless. But all the burst is on the side of Verdant. Even if they come in late on these skirmishes, as long as Maokai or Naught buys
Seneca
time...
quickness into the grand entrance, burst onto Gooby! Twitch flashing away, but
Nice
Hido's
Hido.
gonna follow him. That is absolutely ruthless.
Exactly what you want to see, right? Just finding a Twitch, picks him off. Very nice execution from Seneca. Hido, merciless in his approach as well. Flashes forward, ghost in under the turret, takes down the Twitch to finish him off. Exactly what you want to be seeing. And if you can delay this Twitch's scaling, stop him from being able to outrange you as an AD carry, that's exactly what we're after. Hido going to be able to finish that cull, go back to base, and be back out on the map in time for that dragon. Instead, decided that he wants to grab some plates, doesn't need that advantage heading into a neutral objective fight. Just everybody making sure that Hido's safe, keep the carry alive, and I mean, it worked in the last 2 games, no reason to change it up now.
Like, going to fall down. Reset's going to be taken now by NORD, so that will give Verdant an opportunity to move towards Dragon Pit if they so desire.
I mean, I can think of a few people who don't want to be seeing this situation right now, and it is kind of immense that all of the plays have been coming out of the side of NORD when you have so much CC and potential coming out on the side of Taxa and Wendell here with that Nautilus and with that Maokai, but they haven't been able to find it. They seem fundamentally unused to having to play this aggressively this early. Luckily though, this Drake will be theirs basically uncontested.
This was a choice from NORD. I respect them for not overplaying their hand, but they could have set themselves up for this dragon had they not stuck around for an extra plate on Tahido. Going back to base, found himself a Cloak of Agility. Not sure that that's the big spike that you're after to, you know, really secure yourself an early game advantage. I think they could have probably just headed back to base one play earlier, got themselves back out onto the Drake and found a contest to have really tried to snowball this game. Obviously, if they recognise that Knight is too much of a threat, then that's, you know, their prerogative, and they've made that conscious effort as well.
I love this prioritization from NORD. They recognize that this Twitch could be an issue for the Zeri, and Indecision has made a few visits to this lane to ensure that that doesn't end up being the case. And so we've got Hido on the Zeri, already with that Kraken Slayer, Mythic up on Gooby, up in CS, up in kills, and NORD up in what could be the last game of this series.
Ashkos is well up on his top side, quietly CSing himself, you know, quite the advantage. Been able to take down a plate as well versus Nilla. Has almost finished off all the stacks of his feast that he's going to need to before he needs to move into team fighting and securing objectives with the squad. 5 out of 6 on those feast stacks at the minute. Those unaware of Cho'Gath mechanics, you only get 6 stacks on minions before you need to start stacking on neutral objectives and champions, and of course those are theoretically indefinite.
Oh, Flash with a Magnet Storm onto the bot lane of Verdant. It's the same play executed by NORD, and the results... Oh, it looks even better. Wendell escaping with a slither of HP, but it's another death for Gooby, and this is going to be first half for NORD.
I mean, this is an absolute disaster, to be honest. Like, Verdant, they're the guys who wanted to be opening up on bot lane. They're the guys who theoretically had the safe lane on bot side, but, you know, if I'm natives right now, I'm thinking, okay, we're probably facing NORD. I'm not letting Seneca get this Rakan. He's able to open up far too many plays. He's able to find far too much access. And if then Boxnay is sat there saying, well, he's all going to find that against me, slap him down, because you don't want a guy like Seneca on something this comfortable for him. He's having so much success this game, this series, not just in mid now, but also in setting up plays on bot lane. And honestly, that's what happened in the first game as well. Level 1, level 3, that first recall, they decided not to take it. They decided to make a hardcore play to kill that Varus, and that's honestly what began this snowball that's potentially leading to a 3-0 that only Rudude could have predicted.
And Hitbrain as well. I took a quick check, so shout out Hitbrain for also predicting the 3-0. As Seneca's going to need to dash to Hido here to get over that wall. Not going to be too much of a concern. I also do want to give a shout out to Indecision, because he also has effectively become a second support down on that bot side. Hadn't cleared any of his top camps for about 2-3 minutes or so. Just spent all of his time focusing that bot lane. And, you know, sometimes you'll think, is that worthwhile? You know, I've sacrificed quite a lot for this attempted stopping of the Twitch. And unequivocally, we can say, yes, this has been more than worthwhile. Indecision's lack of farming for a little bit of time. He's down 40 CS, but the payoff has been way bigger.
Well, one of our top laners is split pushing in this game, and it's Kashkos here on the Cho'Gath with the Demolish. Obviously, you can deal a fair bit of damage to these inner towers if left unattended. Still has that teleport. Should NORD find themselves in a fight? Wendell missing with a hook, so he's going to have that on cooldown for a little bit. Does look like Verdant were able to take away that Herald uncontested.
But now they're going to have to take their resets and look at top lane. Chance that Oman can maybe start to push in and take that turret down as well. You can see Indecision and Seneca both hovering. The two-man band of the supportive cast for NORD have been very scary when they've been able to move out on the map together. Oman, I mean, if he just gets this, need to see Seneca hold that recall just a little bit to ensure the safety, but again, NORD finding wins across the map. Yes, that Herald falls, but are they going to be able to get a turret with that Herald? I honestly don't know.
Especially know the resets are happening like this. Right now is when you have the window with NORD on reset to do something with that Herald on towards mid. But instead, Twitch is on recall here. You can't do anything with that. Kaiser's hard shoved in on top side. You can't do anything with that. There is no opening, and now Taxa, he's entering enemy jungle despite Twitch only just arriving on mid lane. They're just not set up or prepared yet for this. And if they try to drop their Herald here for a Drake, that Herald's not going to have the impact you want. You needed this to take towers. At this point, if I'm Verdant, I'm thinking, okay, they don't get soul point yet, right? We have 10 minutes to work with. Let's play away from this Drake. Let's drop the Herald to try to get tempo on the map back. And if we have tempo on the map, we can set up an all-in that we could potentially win. Luckily, they have a better team fight comp than they have done for the entirety of the series. So even if they're going to do things this suboptimally, they may still be able to get something from it in a full-on fight.
Oh, going down onto Catchross. Indecision going forward. Seneca going to be here as well. First killer fight going down onto end. A massive engagement. Flashback away from Nita. Overextension from Omen. And he's taken down by the Kaiser. Low HP buzz for Indecision. But it's Verdant who are down a man in their fight. Both their bot laners off the board.
In case it wasn't evident enough here, the fact that Hido got given 3 kills early on, he's just able to free fire DPS and he absolutely tears Verdant apart. Worth mentioning that Knight is able to deal DPS as well. His flash was instrumental in keeping himself alive, managed to get away from the shuffle. There's a TP in here from Nilla. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. They're going to look to contest, but with no Ornhorn.
Catchcost still has the ult, so he can take away this dragon. No! Tax is going to steal it, pays for it with his life. This is a 4v2 now for Verdant. Teleport going to come through from NORD as well, opting into the fight. Yes, you steal away the Drake. Yes, you deny the soul point, but you're still going to play some blood for it.
And that is not worth. They did not want the Drake. They wanted control of the game back. They could have done that, but instead, they do a fight in mid lane. Yubi gets caught with flash still up. Just absolutely obliterated. You no longer have the damage and the advantage of the switch that you wanted. And they go for that Drake. And yes, death and taxes, the usual play. But unfortunately, it turned into a death on Nito, your last remaining potential carry as well, for an Ocean Drake. That's not worth it. You're now just extending a game where you're still not in control. I think all of the tools were burned incorrectly there. This should have just been Herald top play, ram that down in towards tier 2, get a better reset off while the enemy's doing Drake, and be in a better position for Drake free.
The issue is, this was NORD playing a little bit slow. I don't really feel like slow is the right word in the early game, but it was a lot less kill oriented. They were just moving around the map, being in better positions than Verdant. And so the idea that this is a series that NORD have just out-mechanicked Verdant, maybe not true, but they are still damn good with their hands.
And just the slightest sense of desperation there from Wendell. Hido stars flash still Izzy, and now an engage potentially from Seneca.
Oh, Hook going down onto the rail in the front line. Seneca's quickness is timed out, so Nords won't bite off more than they can chew. They've burnt one ult to try and get the engage off, but Taxa had to respond with a Nature's Grasp.
I'm actually in favour of how the side lanes are set up for Verdant at the minute. Putting Kaiser versus a tank, generally speaking, as long as Catchcost can't all in Nita, should be fine to try and trade back and at the very least hold the waves where Nilla has certainly been struggling in that 1 versus 1 versus the Cho'Gath so far. It's keeping the lane matchups like this maybe a little bit more favourable for Verdant for the time being. Kaiser wave clear doesn't give Catchcost access to those demolish procs all that easily.
And for Verdant, you came in knowing that you needed to win this game. The early game was a little bit more slow paced, but fundamentally it's 20 minutes and you are still down. 4,000 gold, not the most catastrophic of advantages they've had to overcome in this series, but still NORD favoured. What's the angle? How do Verdant make it back into this series and keep the reverse sweep dream alive?
It's giving stall is the only real way. The concern for NORD being that Twitch Kaiser in the late game are just fiends. They do a lot of damage, but you know the response is that also NORD have got Azir, they've got Zeri, 2 champions that also do their own fair whack of damage as well. I think that both of these two teams, generally speaking, fairly similar in terms of how they want to approach these fights. They've got Deathball, we've got 3 frontline / engage champions on either side. You've got 2 DPS carries. It's who can get access to those carries and who can't, that is going to end up being the defining factor of these games. And when you look at the ease of execution, you've got a Rel who can easily jump in there with a follow-up from Rakan, and Seneca's ability to find these flanks in the entire series has proven to be good enough to find fights. So I think that Seneca just gets the edge there.
I'll tell you what, when you've got two comps that want to do broadly the same thing, it feels like when you do fall to that disadvantage, it's even more horrible.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when it comes to this particular kind of situation here, one where you've come into this game with a less than optimal draft and all of your advantages have happened on the lane that theoretically has the least options in the opening phase. I mean, as NORD, you must be feeling on top of the world off of this. The Verdant native series was extremely close. Verdant were match point up on that series at one point. You must feel like you could potentially have a championship team. After a split where as an organization, you really cashed out, you went all in on the big heavy-hitting names and the heavy-hitting lineup like that, and you got a lot of SEO from that, but you didn't get the trophies, you didn't even get an EMEA spot. Now it looks like you can maybe run away with the NLC spot, run away with the EMEA slot, and all for this. This is such an insane turnaround. It's even more impressive than the Verdant story from last year in many ways.
Edo has never played a split of competitive League of Legends, and he is one Nexus kill away from going to EMEA Masters. What a story for this guy. Hopefully, the first chapter in many for a player that has shown incredible promise across the NLC. Has got 3 pentakills already. I'm sure he'll be hoping there's 1 or 2 more in his back pocket before this split is over. Verdant going to be trading, trying to get a little bit more gold on Nita, who has been consistent throughout the split, but he needs to be exceptional in the next few minutes. Indecision dives under the tower. Omen DPSing on the side, but Verdant are actually able to get the better end of things at the start of the play. On the run, double TP. Hido flashing away, but it's still going to get hit by the call of the Forge God Nile, diving under the tower. Seneca going to be able to knock him up, and they've gone too far forward. Verdant get caught with their hands in a cookie jar. Catch cost slaps them down. 2 kills in that fight. Mid lane tower going to be theirs as well. And options running out for Verdant. Diving forward onto Gooby, miss on the shuffle. Twitch can fire out the damage. Seneca is going to be able to get into the back line, shielding Omen to keep him alive. Blinking health bars for the NORD mid laner, but he is going to be A-okay.
A series of overdives there. We see Indecision go onto Gooby with flash available. Finally, we get to see Gooby use that flash to get out to safety, and then NORD in response. Nilla goes too far forward. Wendell has to pay the price as well. The tier 1 turret plus 2 kills for 1, all in favour of NORD. And again, even though it was a play that NORD engaged, one that, honestly, they've kind of fumbled, Verdant, unfortunately, turn it back around and give NORD the advantage.
A lot of things there definitely just weren't hit. They're too desperate to start fights. It feels like a similar scenario to when NORD were getting desperate about fights in the last game, except Verdant are in such a losing position that they can't make the fight even in the way that NORD was able to do so before. This just hasn't been Verdant's series. They have been outpaced by NORD at every single point. They did not adapt to the stuff that NORD showed when they played Ruddy, and they have been summarily punished for it. NORD have been able to play their game out in every single one of this best of 5 series, and they're getting so rewarded for it, and this catch coast guy is getting a little bit huge right now.
Really chonky on the Cho'Gath. Baron's going to be started up, but NORD opt in for the turn. Turn onto Nilla is necessarily where you want to be placing your damage, but they recognize that and they back away. This is going to give mid lane priority over to Gooby. Hido can skate over the wall, but the tower falls regardless.
Yeah, and I like that NORD are also respecting, okay, we don't see Twitch. If we don't see Twitch, we're not going for that all-out engage. They've got Nita to take care of. We've also got this Twitch who's a more consistent DPS threat. The Kai's definitely very burst-oriented at the minute with this very heavy AP build working toward that Void Staff. Now that Sun Disc going down in the mid lane suggests they want to make a very heavy play. the next couple of minutes. This won't last long, but if they can control this top side, sets them up nicely to look around the Baron, or at the very least take a fight.
Going for a flank onto Wendell, as it has been so many times before in this series, and the Nautilus will burn down like he has done so many times before. Catchcos is going to be able to pick him up. Verdant not able to respond.
Now they just turn to the Baron. 27 seconds on Wendell. They've still got the Feast available. So that's about a 2,000 smite. With the smite plus Feast, you're looking at a little bit higher, in fact. Catchcos just warding them off for the time being, but as soon as this gets low, they can either turn or go for the Baron itself.
Seneca with the quickness. Tax actually going to be the target of Hido. Maokai flashing away. Cool the Forge God. Gooby opening up as well. Not quite able to connect with enough damage to bring the members of NORD low. Hido still full HP, but it's enough for Omen to back away. They don't want to overcommit to the Baron. They don't want to throw away the lead that they've built.
I'd like to see them commit to the Baron there. They've built the cheat card to Taxa in. They've bought Feast with them. As long as you just coordinate, you can say 2,000. It's you know, very conservative as a Smite Feast combo. But about 2k HP, you both press your button. You try and make that window for Taxa as small as possible. It's generally impossible to try and outsmite a Cho'Gath plus Smite, and it got down to about 6k HP, plus with Zeri and Azir. They're absolutely melting it. They turned for a fight that they weren't able to find, and they didn't really get any summoner spells for it. The Taxa Flash may well be important as they relook, but like you said, Middlecott, playing safe, playing reserve, not willing to give over this lead, and now with Taxa not having Flash and getting into this pit, just became 10 times harder.
Alternative game plan. Just eats Taxa.
True.
Seems like a smart idea. Nitro is going to be TPing into
Taxa
this,
can't
but
get in.
it's caught out on the side. Baron to NORD. And a kill on the enemy top laner as well. Verdant backing away. That's a teleport into the middle of the fight in the mid lane. And NORD are going to be able to make it work. Wendell pulls himself away with the hook, but gets shuffled back by Omen. Nita not really being played onto too much, but now is isolated. Gets one before he falls into the grave. Gooby kiting with the burst fires on the Twitch, but he's going to get shut down. Knocked up over the wall. Seneca takes him out. That's 4 dead on the side of Verdant with the Baron buff. How much can NORD get?
In here, at the very least, NORD, they may well look to put themselves to EMEA Masters. They've got 30-second death timers on both of the carries.
Wow, this doesn't feel like a 28-minute game either. This feels like it was a 20-minute stomp. There was no real point where NORD were at risk of losing control of the map, of losing control of the game. There was no real point in this series where they were risking losing control of the game, even during those extra plays. And it looks like they're going to cement themselves as... they're still going to do it.
Quite yet.
Why
still
doesn't
a possibility, but Catchcos
the
is going to get
largest of the
focused
friends,
down at the end.
eat the other 4?
Not quite yet. The funeral pyre delayed on the side of Verdant as NORD will retreat back to the Drake, but very much feels like a formality at this point. Mid lane inhib down, one of the Nexus towers to boot, Soul Point in their pocket. NORD can taste that spot at EMEA Masters. They can taste that spot in the final.
Again, a team that blew up their roster from spring to summer. Veteran presence in the top side. NORD released a video with Catchcos giving communication, acting as that veteran from the top lane, has experience in the LFL Division 1, came to the NLC with a bunch of players, 2 rookies down on that bot side, 2 mid-jungle duo who've bounced around teams, not had a great amount of success. Together, they formed a composition of players that are looking to take down our former EMEA Masters representatives, send themselves to the international tournament and prove that they've got what it is the NLC can offer.
It has to be said, these 2 carries are into double point and clicks and double sort of dive, but both champions who can match them at any point. They are thriving nonetheless, because as a team, NORD have just been much more on point on these strategic plays, on these map movements, on getting these groupings, on choosing these fights than Verdant have. They're feeling so confident and making these decisions at a rate that their more veteran opponents are not able to do so. This is a team that has developed as 5 and is showing the rewards of taking such an approach at these semi-finals.
Verdant, it feels like they've got one chance to save this game, and that is emphatically not it. Wendell goes in for the hook, but it's not someone that you want to be locking down. The Nautilus dies. And the engage options from Verdant slipping away. Gooby still going to be able to fire out Niter 2, level 16. You need to respect this, Kai'Sa and NORD. Again, repulsed for the time being, and with the Baron falling away, it's going to be difficult to secure anything off this push. Wendell still down at Niter, going to get knocked into the air. Flashbot for Kashkas! Chops him, but it's not enough to kill him. Omen with a two-person shuffle. Gooby dead, and this is going to be it. Taxa falls into his grave, and NORD chase forward into the base. A double kill for Hido, and Niter will offer no resistance at all. A respawn comes through for Wendell, but there's nothing he can do. NORD set up a date with destiny in the NLC final. They take down Verdant in 3 games and send themselves all the way to the last match of the split.
I'm sorry, guys, but due to the writer's strike, we did have to reuse the script from last split.
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is not. I feel it's a bit of a new script to a certain extent as well, right? Like, or at least NORD kind of flipped the script on like what we could expect from them, as you guys have been talking about here. And we've seen this time and time again, veteran, all throughout the season. Verdant have been very comfortable giving up 2 Drakes early game leads. This time, they just gave up too much, or what's the takeaway from this series?
Well, no, they actually tried to contest them on the first Drakes on Game 1, Game 2. They tried to contest every single neutral objective here, and they got punished for it every time by a better skirmishing team. I wish that they abandoned these Drakes. I wish they abandoned these neutrals and just tried to play for map setup, but they did not do that. And they were doing that until Game 3 against compositions that were much, much better in those scenarios than Verdant's composition could be. They should have just played the map. And in Game 3, when they were suddenly struggling because Gooby was put so far behind, they should have again just tried to trade towers and structures for those neutral objectives and try to get back control, but they just never did it. Verdant had their brain off this entire series, and NORD, they were doing basic things very well and very consistently. That's all you had to do to beat a team like this. You don't need to flex out for super teams. 2 splits in a row now. The big name team that has everybody stuffed in it, budget out the A, they've been knocked out in the semi-finals by an up-and-coming team that's barely made it into playoffs in the first place.
And what a story for NORD, right? Even if they go into the finals against natives and lose in a similar fashion into the way that Verdant have lost today, it's incredible growth. And I think that it's so great that it is this bot lane. It's Hido and Seneca, these resident NLC players that we haven't had the opportunity to see on this stage before, that have been performing, that have been showing up. I think Hido has been consistently great throughout the split, but Seneca had a phenomenal series today, and I really don't think that we can highlight it enough. What a breath of fresh air that this bot lane has been, and you need to ban the Rakan. My guy is way too cracked on it.
I feel like also, I'm going to throw this to you, Rudo, afterwards, but like, I feel like Seneca has just kind of been Gooby's kryptonite as well, because as we talked about in week 2 as well, it was a lot of the struggles that Gooby had on that illusion in initially start of the season here came from the fact that Seneca just hunted him down every single game. And I was just looking here, and I was watching those, like, they just ran like the same play 3 times. It felt like in the bot lane over and over again, and this Twitch never got off its feet.
Yeah, I think that the game plan from NORD and from Verdant alike looked was well read. I think that NORD had complete knowledge of how they wanted to play out this game, and they executed on it. The reason that they lost that second Drake, by the way, was because Indecision hadn't been farming. He didn't have a smite upgrade where Taxa did. Taxa had like 1200 to steal it away. But again, it's because Indecision spent so long down on that bot side, sacrificing top camps to put Gooby behind that team fight. He never really got to do Twitch things. We've seen Twitches melt teams before. It didn't look like that was going to happen ever in this team fight. The final fight we got to see around the top inhibitor turret, there was just a stopwatch that immuned 2.5 seconds of the Twitch ult. So everything that Indecision did was to spite Gooby, and when you pair that with Seneca always finding engages, it just paired up too well.
It does also make them a multi-threat team, right? Because the first 2 games were entirely, we're just overloading mid over and over and over again. Game 3, mid couldn't breathe level 1, right? The Azir Kai'Sa matchup is difficult for Azir, but not at that point and not at that stage. And we're starting to think, okay, Verdant, they're in the drive. Nope, they just flipped it. They went bot lane instead, overloaded that lane, and it worked out. They seem to be really good at adjusting on the fly, and their mental must be in a really good spot. Their confidence must be in a really good spot to make these decisions super fast now. Natives are going to have a really tough time on their hands with the tempo that NORD are going to be entering the series with. Yeah, I can scarcely believe it. I had to remember which team won.
With that, we're going to go to an interview with one of the coaches of Verdant here, Dan Holtz. So, first of all, commiserations, Dan, but I also want to congratulate you on a pretty solid regular season. Obviously, not the playoffs you guys were hoping for. What's the next step from here?
So I think put it straight. Obviously, it's a massive failure, the split. Players, coaches, everyone will think that. I don't think there's any doubt in that. Regular split is regular split. It doesn't matter. Playoffs matter, and that's the way we look at it. But I think first of all, how good are NORD? They've improved so much. Beginning of the split, week 1, they looked like one of the worst teams, and how much they've improved, and then gone to finals and gone to E-Masters, and it's incredible. And some of the hard work they've put in, they've been very public on Twitter about how much work they've been putting in, and indecision in the gym and stuff like that. And it's that's how they got there. They put in the work and they got there, and it's really, really nice to see if it was neutral. Obviously, I'm not a neutral, so it's horrible, but, it's that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to the fact that it's been a good story, right? That's what we've been talking about a lot on the desk here. So I kind of want to talk to you because you obviously had the experience of facing natives in a very close best out of 5 last week. Who do you think will take the title in the NLC now? You faced both teams on the same patch, best out of 5 format. Do you think NORD is going to come in and absolutely smash natives? Or where do you see that?
Yeah, predictions. I'm not going to, but what I would say is again, that makes it even more disappointing. Game 4, if everyone remembers, 4 games we dominated against natives, and we played our stuff and we played how we can play, and we just didn't close out game 4. We made 2 huge mistakes, towards the end of game 4, lost game 4, and then game 5 was a bit tough with the draft and stuff. We made a couple of errors, and it's that close. This sport is so close, and that's why we watch it. It's all exciting, but it makes it even worse that we played so to our style and how we wanted to play, and we came out of that native series in good spirits. The previous week we played poorly. We lost against Fourth Wall. We weren't playing, and when we went into that series, we were like, okay, can we do it? And that proved to us that we could play the way that we wanted to play, and a few tweaks, and we could have won that series 3-1 quite easily. And it's going from that to today where we just didn't turn up. You can't play like that in playoffs. That's the end of it. And obviously, the coaches will look at what we did in preparation, and the players will look at what they did in preparation. But hats off again to NORD, they were brilliant, and it's really important now that NORD and natives go into EU Masters and really strong. I'll be the biggest supporter of those two as we go into EU Masters, and let's hope they can take the form that they've got, both of them, and do really well. And I think that's the big thing now is looking forward for them, and I'm sure it'll be an absolute banger series, between the two.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Dan, and commiserations on the loss yet again.
Sure. If I could just add one last thing, obviously
apologies
to Sammy, the owner. I think he gets a lot of stick as well. In Verdant, he's put so much into the NLC in the last year, 2 years, and it's sad for him not be able to make it out of that. But and I think Verdant get a lot of stick, but Sammy behind the scenes, he puts so much into it, cares so much about it. I think it's really important that everybody sort of knows that, the amount of work that he puts into it. So yeah, I just wanted to add that as well. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the interview.
Thank you so much for your time as well. Very honest interview coming through that middle cut.
Yeah, and I think that's the sad side of competition, I think, right, is that for every great story and for every winner, there has to be a loser. I do really want to echo Dan's point. I was on Verdant as a content creator back last spring when they came into the split in NLC Div 2 with high expectations. Unfortunately, got relegated down to Div 3, but have continued to invest in the scene, have continued to push the scene forward, and obviously this is a a bitterly disappointing result for them. It is an underperformance for them. I think the coaches and the players are going to be honest about that. But I think they've done a lot of good in the scene, in the league, in terms of professionalism, and that's something that we should applaud and that we need to see more of in the NLC.
I do think, though, that there's something to be said that clearly the wrong lessons were taken from their success last split. Right, their success last split was on the back of development. And I think continuing to invest in development is one of the most cost-effective things an organization can do when they have proof that they have a system that is working. And they had that proof. And so they're going for development. They, in fact, did the same thing that an org that, you know, they upset did, right, last year. And that time, like, well, this time around, I mean, that organization, they took that lesson from that BO5 of maybe we should be investing in development instead, and maybe that's the way to go, and they've been rewarded for it, right? It's about the lessons that were taken off of that Verdant v NORD, very close BO5 last split, and because one team took the right lessons and the other team took the wrong ones, it wasn't that close this split. It was the reverse of the same story, different orgs, and I hope both orgs take the right lesson going through in towards next year. The split's not done yet for NORD, but if they're thinking about next year, I think you double down on doing this.
So let's look a little bit forward towards Saturday, because that is when we're going to have the finals. Both teams have ample time to prepare them. That is very important. And if you are the Natives coaching staff here, Rudude, what is one thing that you ensure that you need to drill into your team regarding like what NORD have showcased today?
It's Twist getting out of lane. I think that Seneca was instrumental today in setting up for all of their map plays. Any early advantages they got came from Seneca being able to supplement midsection very heavily. So Twist needs to be able to match that. Hit level 3, you take your base timer, grab your boots, you walk mid lane. Even if it's just to put down cursory vision to spot out Seneca doing a roam trip, it needs to come from stopping Seneca. Because although, you know, he didn't have pentakills abundantly, he was the one who gave them those advantages early on.
Yeah, so if you're going to the other side of the field here, so obviously NORD right now, they're busy, you know, they're riding the high of having beaten Verdant 3-0, very dominant victory, right? But, you know, you gotta look forward into Natives, and when we think about this Native roster, it's very skilled across the board here. What is the focal point for NORD going into that matchup, do you think?
The biggest difference is going to be jungle, right? Stefan's being on a different level. Stefan sits on top of the enemy jungle the whole time. Seneca's the guy that's going to have to step up, because I think if Natives just ban Rakan and then go to play their usual jungle style of just not letting Indecision do anything this game and using jungle as a third carry, then the options are going to be very few and far between for NORD. They have to address that. They have to look at how Stefan's playing, at why Stefan's getting the advantages he is. They have to assume that they're not going to get Rakan. Don't pick that in scrims all week, right? And off of that, hopefully a valid game plan will reveal itself, alright? I won't be telling them what that should be unless they want to go on my Twitter account, hit that pin tweet, grab a coaching session for yourself as well at a low price, right? And then maybe that can be done. That would be the most intelligent thing any org's done all split.
All right, Middle Card, is that an offer that you would not be able to refuse, or do you have another astute observation?
I've heard veterans all right at coaching. I think
All right.
the thing that Natives are going to come in with is a strong game plan and a strong idea of how they need to play. I think Verdant, by necessity, have been a lot more mid-focused this split, and that has maybe played into some tendencies that were exploited. I think the Stefan point is absolutely wonderful, though, because when Natives have pressure in their lanes, they use them to enable Stefan to shut down the enemy jungler. And we saw a couple of times Indecision was falling behind on CS, and he has been a player that when has been put under pressure and put behind, hasn't necessarily been able to get things going. We never saw NORD play from a deficit in this series, and that's a credit to them, right? If you're able to continuously get leads, you're never going to be playing from a deficit. But Natives are much more likely to be able to enforce a deficit on them, and then maybe the clean team fighting, then maybe the clean macro play that we saw from NORD in this series starts to fall down a little bit.
Yeah, and also something we kind of, when I was on the broadcast last week, when we had the Verdant versus Native series, right? And I think that over the course of those 5 games, we saw a lot of shaky gameplay. Obviously, Natives now have gotten a lot of time to sit out, work out the quirks, to figure out what went wrong, and before they finally got those good drafts together in Game 5, Rooted. But, like, is it too wild of a statement to make that NORD are just going to be favorites against natives on Saturday?
I don't think so.
Oh.
So I think that Dan Holt had a really good point. Verdant should have won that series versus natives. That could have been over in 3 games, should have been over in 4. By extension, they should have then been in the finals, and we could have effectively just have had our finals matchup that we've seen right here. Not just 3-0'd that team who I think should have beaten natives. I'm all in, right, on the NORD train. I was all in with the 3-0 prediction. I'm all in with the fact that the series that they play up against natives is very likely going to be, in my opinion, NORD favoured. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done by both sides. And obviously, the preparation time that natives have got is substantially larger than that we see from NORD, because they've had to prepare for Verdant this week. They're going to have to now spend that time preparing for natives, where natives have just been sat back, grabbing tape on whoever it is that they're going to be up against. They've got a full 3-game series now to look at for NORD to see what they do. There's a lot of preparation that can go in there, and there is a slight advantage to natives in that prep department, but it's just on the staff of NORD to be able to turn around some good preparations for Saturday's game.
With someone we have been honestly showering with superlatives all split. We have an integrated with Hito on the line here now. So first of all, congratulations. First competitive split. First final secured. First EMEA master secured as well. I assume that must be an absolutely amazing feeling.
It most definitely is, yeah. It most definitely is. Being faced at everything is, it's really nice, yeah.
And again, also, you just keep collecting pentakills, quadra kills.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, man.
I don't know, man. I think there's definitely involving an essence of luck throughout all these pentakills, but yeah, I guess I'm the one just stealing all the kills and ending up with the pentakills. I don't know.
I just like yelling on comms, like, give me a pentakill, give me a pentakill. Did it just like, you just in the...
For the guys when I was, on this area, I was like, penta. So, of course.
Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, you guys just did not give any room to breathe for Gooby in that final game here. I kind of want to like talk to you about your relationship with Seneca as this bot laner here, right? Because oftentimes we see him kind of like leaving you alone for a bit, but also on Rakan in this game specifically, he was so critical for you.
Yeah, no, for sure. His Rakan is outstanding. That's pretty much how we, play the game, right? If he leaves, he tells me to stay safe and everything. It's just something that we've developed throughout our scrim, and we've also something in terms of 2v2s. We play a lot of 2v2s, which have improved us a lot in terms of obviously us being rookies and being very inexperienced. We wanted to like kind of cheat a little bit of experience through 2v2s. So yeah.
Yeah, also I feel like it's just like it's been kind of crazy to watch this, right? Because there were moments and times in regular season where even when you like spoke to Nico and the rest of the staff and stuff, that it seemed like you guys were like somewhat mentally crumbling for a bit. There was this interview with Envy Carry where he called Oman scared as well. It seems like you guys have kind of gotten those mental issues, quote unquote, out of the way. Like, are you guys just like stone cold now, or what's going on?
I probably wouldn't say we're stone cold, but it seems to be better. It seems to be improving on every individual. So I think that is a sector that we've improved on for sure, yes.
Awesome. Anything, before I let you go back to your team, celebrate, start to prepare for Saturday, anything you want to say to the people?
Other than thanks to my entire team and coaches, that's pretty much it. The
awesome.
support,
Thank
right?
you. Yep. Thank you so much for your time, Hito, and congratulations and best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you. Thanks.
What a nice chap.
Very nice. I was like, yeah, I get a little bit lucky with all the pentakills. Shouts his like coach and his teammates. I think that's the real takeaway from NORD, right? We've got strong individual performances from pretty much everybody, and when everyone's doing strong individual performances, you just look great as a team as well.
That's kind of just true here, but let's look at the bracket, guys, right? Because let's kind of like figure out like where we are, how we've gotten here, because we had that qualification match to the EMEA Masters and just the NLC finals here, right? Where we talked about the whole natives taking down Verdant, where they should have gone the other way around. Then you had NORD looking very good against Ruddy, and now NORD have looked even better, one could say, against Verdant. So on Saturday, we're going to have the grand finals between natives and NORD here, and Veteran. That's going to be a bang of a matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think this matchup's going to go very different to the Verdant Nord one, because the reason Verdant were able to do anything into natives is because they were able to contest the lanes, which made it difficult for Stefan to be able to get his optimal jungle pathing off. Nord didn't even try to contest them in the lanes, they just overloaded one particular lane and forced them into skirmishes and ended the laning phase. Natives would love you to do that. Right? For natives, that allows Stefan to actually play the map that he wants to be playing. So I think it's not as simple as the transitive properties of, well, it was close here, it wasn't close here. It's a stylistic difference. The way that Nord play is oddly very good for the reasons stated beforehand with that 3-man, 2-man, 0-man setup into the way that Verdant play, but it is not going to be as successful into the way that natives play. So I actually still back natives for this particular series.
And speaking of close things, we have our predictions race going on here, and there's been a development here. Verdant and Hiprain going for the 3-point perfect day today. Middlecart, you're almost mathematically unable to catch me now. Like, that must feel a little bit disappointing.
Witter, we have just witnessed one of the greatest stomps that we've seen.
He's mathematically unable to catch you if you just match any one of his predictions.
No. Stop telling. No. The series. Think about the series, Witter. Don't worry about the predictions or how you're gonna manipulate them so that you end up out on top.
I put mine in before yours, by the way. I'm just gonna put that out there here.
All right. But I think I just want to highlight. There's a lot of Verdant votes there. There's a few Nords sprinkled in, but I think that Verdant taking this series was the majority opinion. You can see Twitter agreed there, but there was the assumption that it would be close if it were to happen. This was not a close series, and that makes the series against natives all the more interesting. Yes, natives probably a stronger stylistic matchup, but if we get a stronger stylistic matchup into this Nord team, then we're looking at a very, very entertaining series.
And Verdant, I'm gonna have you make a case for an MVP here that isn't Hito, so get a pick.
Oh, it's Seneca then. If it's not Hito, it's Seneca. I highlighted it when you were asking how the natives look to prep. I think that Seneca here, his map movements early on, and later on as well, multiple times he would just be nowhere near his team on the Rakan, setting up for objectives, but for the better. It's not a bad thing that he was in these flank positions, was always looking to get behind enemy lines, find those unique angles to catch out the enemy backline, and I think that if there's one player there, it's quite easily going to be Seneca for me that has that MVP.
Yeah, and in case anyone in chat wants to put their vote in for the MVP, then to go to Twitter at NLC Law, where you can find the vote over there in a poll in a recent tweet here. And Veteran, I'm just going to assume that you agree with the fact that it should be Hito MVP, or are you on the Seneca MVP full train here?
I mean, it should be Seneca. It's kind of stupid to say it would be Hito, when the defining thing about this team in the whole playoffs run has been Seneca goes mid, and suddenly a 3-man mid section against either 2-man or 0. So Seneca's literally the difference maker. There is no one else who's making that big of an impact compared to the opponents. Yeah, it's literally out of those 3, it can only be Seneca that you would vote for.
Yeah, and Middlecart, do you have any final thoughts on today's series? You're talking about this as a series that will go down in the mythology of the NLC, and to a certain extent, I do kind of agree with you.
Yeah, Nord are very, very scary. Nord are very, very scary. I do want to give a quick shout out to E-Roll, who has actually also just qualified to EMEA Masters with a 3-0 series, 4-7 AM in the Elite Series. So we're going to hopefully going to be able to see him again on that big stage. But this was an immense series from Nord. I hope it doesn't get to their heads. I hope that they come into Saturday as prepared as they were for today, because if they are, like you said, it's going to be a banging matchup.
Yeah, and with that, guys, I think we should kind of start rounding out here. So, anyone, Verdant, Veteran, do you have anything you guys want to say to the people?
Yeah, Middlecart, are you wearing lipstick?
No.
Oh, okay. Your lips are
the beauty
beautifully pink. Like, they are beautifully pink. I've been wondering that all day. I just had to ask.
Why have you been wondering about my lips so much, Veteran?
Because they are ridiculously pink. Like, you have very well-coloured lips, alright? It's a compliment.
This is your fault, Witter.
It literally matches.
Witter,
it literally matches. No, but it matches one of the colours on the
I
thing he
should have
wears on his head.
specified
There
League of
are
Legends
about a
NLC
million
related.
colours on this thing, okay? It's the entire colour wheel.
But like the middle one.
Ritter, close out the show, please.
Yeah. So remember that you can follow
Accept the
either of us
compliment.
on the
Accept the
on Twitter handle,
compliment.
so you can see under
Accept
the,
it. You
under
look good.
our names.
Accept it!
Also remember that you can follow the NLC
Accept the
on Twitter at NLCLOL, and also you do
will
not
not
want to
rest.
miss the finals on Saturday. We're going to be starting the same time as always, but again, as I said, it's going to be on Saturday, 1800 CEST. That's going to be 5 p.m. CET for all of the Brits out there. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and see you all for a banging grand finals on Saturday.